Chapter 575. As a black car parked next to the Adra Art sports car, a young and beautiful girl got off the driver's seat. Although this girl's beauty was not worth mentioning compared to Mu Weiniang's, she was still a goddess in the eyes of many boys. Her name was Li Jing, the sales lady of the Roland Villa complex. Li Jing's recent performance was very poor due to some unspoken rules in the real estate market, which she really didn't want to accept. The manager even said that if she couldn't sell a house this month, she would directly pack up and leave. Therefore, although she was very impatient, she also looked forward to the stars and the moon, hoping that a rich customer would visit her. It would be best if the customer was a woman. However, today, she was thinking about something at the entrance of the sales center when she saw a handsome man and a beautiful woman coming, so she directly greeted them. She was looking forward to it because the man and woman in front of her, be it their clothes or the luxury sports car they drove, looked like rich people. Mr. Tang, Miss Mu, there are only 4 villas left in our Roland Villa complex. I've already introduced 3 of them to you in the sales center. You're not satisfied with 3 of them, so I'll take you directly to the number 9 villa. Please come with me. It's very close to here. Tan Xiao and Mu Weiniang nodded slightly and followed Li Jing on foot for a minute or two before they arrived at the number 9 villa. It was a European-style villa with a total of 3 floors and a large area. The most satisfactory thing was that there were hundreds of square meters of lawn and garden in front of the door. It's very stylish. The price shouldn't be cheap, right? Asked Tan Xiao with a smile. It's indeed not cheap, said Li Jing. Due to the rapid growth of the housing prices recently, the price here has reached 145,000 yuan per square meter. The lawn and garden outside the villa are complimentary, but it's still 460 square meters. The total price is 66.7 million yuan. With my authority, I can give you a 5% discount. The transaction price is 365 million yuan. If you pay the full amount in one go, I can also help you apply for a discount of 65,000 yuan. Tan Xiao looked at Mu Weiniang with a questioning look in his eyes. Mu Weiniang nodded silently, indicating that she could accept the price. Her performance made Tan Xiao have a whole new level of respect for her, because he didn't expect Mu Weiniang to earn such a huge sum of money in such a short period of time. After that, the two toured the villa under Li Jing's guidance. The overall layout was very good, and there was a very spacious private swimming pool on the west side of the first floor. Nowadays, villas with indoor private swimming pools were very rare. Deal. After Mu Weiniang finished reading, she immediately made a decision. Li Jing's eyes revealed a pleasantly surprised look. Just as she left the villa with Tan Xiao and Mu Weiniang, ready to go to the sales center to handle the transaction procedures, Han Jintong, who had been waiting outside the door for a long time, stopped the 3 of them. Grandpa Han, you didn't sunbathe on the balcony today. Why did you come out for a stroll? Li Jing was obviously very familiar with Han Jintong as she greeted him with a smile. Han Jintong faintly smiled and slightly nodded to her before looking at Tan Xiao. A bit of respect appeared on his old face as he said, "Are you here to buy a house, Mr. Tang?" Tan Xiao didn't expect that he would meet Han Jintong here. He shook his head and said, "I'm not buying it. I'm just accompanying a friend to buy it." Han Jintong looked at Mu Weiniang and felt a bit regretful inwardly. He also thought that if his granddaughter worked hard, perhaps she would have a chance with Tan Xiao. But looking at Mu Weiniang, he knew that there was no hope for his granddaughter since she was too good-looking. Not only was her appearance, figure, and temperament not inferior to his granddaughter, but she was even better. Alas, with his identity and status, I'm afraid only such a girl can be worthy of him, right? Han Jintong sighed deeply inwardly. Grandpa Han, do you know Mr. Tang? Asked the sales lady, Li Jing, in surprise. Tan Xiao didn't wait for Han Jintong to answer and rushed to answer first, I've met him once, but I'm not familiar with him. Upon hearing it, Han Jintong's breath stagnated and he immediately forced a wry smile inwardly. If it were someone else, he would have either slapped them or turned around and left. But how could he afford to offend this lord in front of him? With a bit of awkwardness on his old face, Han Jintong said, "Although I've only met Mr. Tang once, I admire him very much." Little Li. Since Mr. Tang's friend wants to buy a house, you must give a discount on the price. I'll call the manager right away, said Li Jing quickly. Tan Xiu slightly furrowed his brows as he looked at Han Jintong and asked, "Is your face very valuable?" Cough, cough, Han Jintong choked and coughed a few times upon hearing Tan Xiu's question. However, he came here eagerly to express his goodwill, so he said, "It should be worth some money. The owner of this villa complex used to be my second son's right-hand man. The house I'm living in now is my second son's house." Tan Xiu nodded. He then looked at Li Jing and said, "Don't call him. Let's sign the agreement according to the price we've agreed on. Are you all right with it, Weiniang?" A strange glint flashed in Mu Weiniang's eyes. With her intelligence, she instantly understood that Tan Xiu didn't want to accept the kindness of the old man in front of her, and even deliberately kept a distance from him. Therefore, she let out a faint smile and said, "No problem. I'll pay the full amount after signing the agreement." Li Jing looked at Tan Xiu and Han Jintong in front of her with an awkward expression. She found the manager's phone number in her phone book and didn't know whether she should press the dial button or not. Han Jintong let out a hollow laugh. He found that Tan Xiu didn't want to accept his kindness, so he immediately said, "Then let's do it according to Mr. Tang's intention. The customer is God, and we must do our best to serve them. Also, I still have something to do, so I can't accompany you anymore, Mr. Tang. Goodbye." After saying that, Han Jintong left with a dejected expression. Li Jing was also a smart girl. She could clearly see that Han Jintong was obviously flattering Tan Xiu. Therefore, she secretly decided that when she met the manager, she must report this matter to him. If possible, she would strive to give more discounts to the customer. "Both of you, let's go back to the sales center." At the sales center, Fang Chang sat comfortably on the European-style sofa, crossed his legs, and looked at Hao Qian, who was standing in front of him and fawning over him. As the manager of the sales center, he had a lot of power and a lot of money. Especially the sales ladies who worked here, each and every one of them fawned on him. "Shall we have dinner together tonight, Qian?" Fang Chang thought of Hao Qian's fair and tender flesh under her work uniform, and his heart was boiling hot. He was not a decent person. He had bedded several of the saleswomen in the sales center, and the beautiful Hao Qian in front of him was no exception. Hao Qian deliberately pouted and spoke with a bit of a coquettish tone, "Brother Chang, it's naturally not a problem to have dinner with you tonight. However, my customer hopes that you can lower the price of Villa number 9. You see." Fang Chang slightly furrowed his brows and said, "The price I gave him is already very low, yet he actually wants to lower it again. Isn't this making things difficult for me? Besides, the villas in our Lauren Villa complex are not that difficult to sell. Even if he doesn't buy it now, I'm sure there will be other customers coming to see the house in a few days. If it's really not possible, just reject it." Hao Qian was anxious. She came to Fang Chang's side and sat down. She looked around and found that no one was paying attention to their corner. She immediately raised her hand and placed it on Fang Chang's thigh. Her slender little finger even drew a circle on the inside of his thigh and said in a coquettish manner, "Brother Chang, it's hard to say if other customers will come over and count it as my business. Can't you just help me out a little? At worst, I'll just wear the nurse uniform you bought last time." "Really?" Fang Chang's spirit shook and he quickly asked. "It's absolutely true." "Tonight," said Hao Qian with all seriousness. Fang Chang raised his hand to touch his chin and thought for a few seconds. Then, he happily said, "All right then. Call the customer to sign the agreement this afternoon. Tell him I'll only give him this afternoon." "All right. Thank you, Brother Chang." Hao Qian happily glanced around. Then, she hugged Fang Chang's neck and kissed his face. She then grabbed her mobile and dialed a number. She spent a minute or two to communicate with the other party and agreed to sign the purchase agreement at the sales center at 2:30 in the afternoon. 10 minutes later, Li Jing walked briskly as she led Tan Xiu and Mu Weining to the sales center. "Mr. Tang, Miss Mu. Please wait in the rest area. I'll make the contract and we'll sign the purchase agreement later." "All right." Tan Xiu and Mu Weining were not in a hurry and came to the rest area to sit down. Li Jing busied herself for a while. After finishing the purchase agreement, she didn't immediately go to see Tan Xiu and Mu Weining. Instead, she went to find Fang Chang. She couldn't hide the excitement in her eyes as she said, "Manager, my customer is going to buy our number 9 villa. I've negotiated the price with them, and now." Fang Chang waved his hand to interrupt her and lightly said, "The number 9 villa has been booked. Tell your customer to choose the other 3 villas." Li Jing was dumbfounded. She stared blankly at Fang Chang as if she couldn't believe her ears. She had just checked the real estate system and found that the number 9 villa had not been booked at all. Even the deposit had not been paid. "Manager, are you sure you're not mistaken?" Fang Chang frowned and unhappily said, "The number 9 villa has just been booked. I didn't make a mistake. The one who booked the number 9 villa is Hao Qian's customer. They'll come here this afternoon to sign the purchase agreement." "All right, don't bother me anymore if there's nothing else." Li Jing quickly said, "Manager, the consistent principle of our sales department is that whoever pays the money first gets the house. If the other party has paid the deposit, I'll leave immediately. But my clients have already agreed that once they sign the purchase contract, they will immediately pay the full amount. You see." Today's second update. Can today's monthly votes exceed 100? Chapter 576. Fang Chang's expression slightly changed and his eyes were filled with anger. He didn't like Li Jing. No, it was more accurate to say that he liked Li Jing very much. He once wanted to get her into his bed. Unfortunately, Li Jing didn't have a good impression of him and wouldn't agree no matter what. Therefore, he secretly instructed other saleswomen to compete for Li Jing's clients. He even gave others a lower discount than Li Jing, making Li Jing unable to negotiate a deal. Now, he only gave Li Jing 2 choices. First, climb into his bed like a bitch, and second, pack up and get the hell out of here. As for selling a house, even if Li Jing's mission was up to standard, he was just teasing her. "I told you that the 9th villa has been booked by someone else. The deposit will be transferred to the company's financial account later. I understand that you want to sell the house, but you can't snatch it from someone else, right? Alright, go ask your client if he wants to choose another villa. If not, then get the hell out of here." Tears overflowed from Li Jing's eyes. The grievance in her heart made her want to slap Fang Chang a few times, but her rationality told her not to do so. She couldn't lose her job and the house must be sold because she needed to make money to pay the mortgage and send money to her parents in her hometown. Suddenly, she recalled something and resisted the urge to cry, saying, "Manager, since you're willing to sell the 9th villa to someone else, then I'll forget about it. But my 2 clients are very special. Uncle Han, who lives in the 8th building, seems to know them. He's very cordial in front of them." Fang Chang slightly furrowed his brows and immediately sneered, "Are you trying to tell me that old Han's second son used to be our big boss's right-hand man, and our big boss's current achievements are inseparable from his help? Isn't that so?" Li Jing said. Fang Chang stood up and said with a sneer, "Li Jing, do you know why you have no achievements in our sales center? That is, you are too stupid, inflexible and inflexible. What era are we in now? Live with that gratitude. Our boss is much more capable than old man Han's son back then. Do you think our boss will still give in to old man Han's son? Ridiculous." The glimmer of hope that just rose in Li Jing was destroyed by Fang Chang's words. She was unwilling, but she didn't know what else to say. Suddenly, she mustered up her courage and made a decision in her heart. He turned around and left. Under Fang Chang's sneering gaze, he returned to his office. It only took him a few minutes to get Chen Bin's phone number. Shanghai Grand Corporation. Chen Bin, who had a net worth of billions, was currently sitting in the reception room, receiving guests. This was a big boss that he had invited many times over. His status in Shanghai and his wealth were much greater than his. Brother Jean, I've already expressed my intentions, and I've also clearly stated all the profits I've given out. As long as you are willing to hand over those projects to me, I promise to complete them with quality and quantity. Moreover, this doesn't affect your next big plan. It's simply the best of both worlds. Ever since Chen Bin got the news that Jin Xingkue intended to subcontract the other projects in his hands, he had been looking forward to taking over from Jin Xingkue. Jin Xingkue lightly smiled and said, Brother Chen, we're all in the construction industry, so we know each other very well. However, more than a dozen construction companies have approached me recently, and some of them have offered much more than you. It'll be really difficult for me if you can't give me some profits. Chen Bin secretly cursed Jin Xingkue for being greedy, but he still said with a smile on his face, Brother Jin, how about this? I'll ask my men to make a new agreement, and the conditions will definitely be better than this. Since we have time today, how about we go to the golf course and play a few rounds? Jin Xingkue shook his head and smilingly said, Brother Chen, you might have the leisure and elegance, but I can't. My new project has just started construction recently, and I've got all kinds of things to worry about. Let's wait for later. We'll go and play a few rounds later when we have time. Chen Bin was a bit disappointed and envious. But he had no choice since Jin Xingkue's business was booming, especially the new project, which had a huge amount of work. Once it was completed, he would be rolling in money. Ring, 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 the call from an unknown number made Chen Bin swallow back the words he wanted to say. After hesitating for a moment, he apologetically looked at Jin Xingkue and answered the call, I'm Chen Bin. What's the matter? Hello, boss. I'm Li Jing, a salesperson from the Lauren Villa Complex's sales center. I really shouldn't have disturbed you, but I have something very important to report to you. Say it. Chen Bin instinctively wanted to hang up the phone when he heard Li Jing's identity. After all, he was very disgusted by this kind of action of skipping a level to contact him. However, Li Jing's last sentence made him temporarily give up the idea of hanging up the phone. Li Jing had already considered what she wanted to say in her heart. She was already holding on to her last hope. She even had the thought of throwing caution to the wind. Not only did she tell him about Fang Chang's actions, but she also told him about the customer who had come to buy the house today. Finally, she said, Boss, Manager Fang said that you're the kind of businessman who burns bridges after crossing the river. You only chase after benefits and don't care about old friendships. That's why Grandpa Han attaches great importance to Mr. Tang. Even his words and actions are somewhat flattering. Also, those two guests are driving very luxurious sports cars. I just secretly checked the internet and found that the value of that sports car is more than 10 million yuan. I think that their identities are not ordinary. Chen Bin's heart was filled with anger after listening to it. This anger was not directed at Li Jing, but at Fang Chang. Outsiders might not know his relationship with the Han family, but he was very clear about it. If it weren't for Han Jintong's son back then, he would have been just a small gangster now. Therefore, even after all these years, he still remembered the other party's good deeds and even treated Han Jintong like a family member and elder. Also, what shocked him was that the other party's identity was indeed not to be underestimated since he could drive a luxury sports car worth 10 million yuan. The water in Shanghai was very deep. Even if he had a net worth of billions, he was still treading on thin ice for fear of offending someone he couldn't afford to offend. Chen Bin pondered for a moment and then asked, Who's Mr. Tang? Tan Xiu, said Li Jing. Chen Bin thought about it and felt that the name was somewhat familiar. It was as if he had heard it somewhere, but he couldn't remember it for a while. However, the person who could be courted by Han Jinteng's grandpa Han and even had an obvious flattering attitude was probably not ordinary. I see. I'll go to the villa complex later. Chen Bin hung up the phone after saying that. After hesitating for a while, he looked at Jin Xinkue and asked, Brother Jin, I want to ask you something. Have you ever heard of a young man named Tan Xiu? Jin Xinkue stared blankly for a moment before his expression changed and he asked in a deep voice, if my guess is correct, I do know him. Why are you asking me about Tan Xiu, Chen Bin? Chen Bin was very astute. He couldn't help but be more cautious after noticing the change in Jin Xinkue's expression and the way he addressed him. He then said, it's like this. A staff member of the Villa Complex's sales center just reported a situation to me. He narrated the whole story with a serious expression and finally said, I feel that the name Tang Xiu is somewhat familiar. It's like I've heard it somewhere, but I can't remember it for the time being. But Brother Jin, you're knowledgeable and have a wide network, so I want to ask you about it. A strange expression was revealed on Jin Xinkue's face. He shot a deep look at Chen Bin before he got up and said, Brother Chen, I think I'm very satisfied with the offer you gave me before. You don't need to ask your men to draw up a new proposal. We can sign the contract today. But I have a request. Chen Bin was dumbfounded. He was very astute, yet he was still a bit confused and disoriented by Jin Xinkue's sudden change of topic. Please say it. Chen Bin cautiously said. Didn't Tan Xiu want to buy the villa complex of yours, said Jin Xinkue. Sell it to him, and sell it to him for only 1 yuan. Chen Bin instantly sucked in a cold breath after hearing it. Even if he couldn't figure it out at the moment, he also understood that Jin Xinkue had agreed to cooperate with him because of this Tan Xiu. Who the hell is this guy? Not only did he make the old man Han Jintong come to flatter him, but even a big shot like Jin Xinkue gave up a lot of benefits for him. Chen Bin cautiously probed, Brother Jin, this Mr. Tang, he has many identities, so I won't introduce them one by one, said Jin Xinkue. But I'll tell you 2 things. First, Tan Xiu is someone I can't afford to offend. Even if there are 10 of me, I still can't afford to offend him. Second, he's my friend and also my partner. Although I'm the chief surgeon of my new city's construction project, I'm also a major shareholder. Hiss, Chen Bin immediately gasped after hearing it. At this moment, he cursed Fang Chang inwardly, wishing that he could slap him to death. Such a big shot wanted to buy a villa complex in his villa complex, yet Fang Chang unexpectedly refused to let him in just to make things difficult for a saleswoman. Brother Jin, I'll immediately rush to the Roland Villa complex and sell it to Mr. Tang for 1 yuan according to what you said. Jin Xinkue nodded and said, if that's the case, then go there. It's not convenient for me to appear there, so don't mention anything between us to him. I'll wait for you at Jinda Real Estate after everything is done. I'll be waiting for you with the contract. Brother Jin, I'll definitely handle this matter well, said Chen Bin with all seriousness. Actually, I'll do it even if you don't say it. Elder Han is my elder, so I absolutely don't dare to disobey his words. Jin Xinkue nodded with a smile, but inwardly, he admired Tan Xiu from the bottom of his heart. He had heard of Han Jinteng's name. He was a very capable old man who didn't reveal his talents. His second son used to be a very powerful businessman in Shanghai. Later on, his business became very big and he had now emigrated to a foreign country to develop his business. Chapter 577. Roland Villa Complex, Real Estate Sales Center. Tan Xiu and Mu Weining were sitting in the rest area, waiting for Li Jing. But even after more than half an hour, they still didn't see her figure. Just when the 2 of them were surprised, Li Jing slowly came. Her hands were empty when she came back. What happened? Asked Tan Xiu with a puzzled expression. Li Jing didn't know what her boss meant, so she wasn't sure whether her complaint would be useful or not. However, she had already packed up her things in the office. If her boss came and was not satisfied with her, she would probably be kicked out. Li Jing felt somewhat apologetic toward Tan Xiu and Mu Weining. She felt that she should have implicated them, so she said, Mr. Tang, Miss Mu. I'm sorry to have kept you waiting. Something happened just now, so our boss is rushing here. I believe he'll be here soon. Can the two of you wait a little longer? Something happened? Asked Mu Weining. What happened? Li Jing wanted to say something but hesitated. Looking at her appearance, Tan Xiu slightly furrowed his brows and asked, What's the name of your boss? Chen Bin. Li Jing secretly heaved a sigh of relief and answered. Chen Bin. Tan Xiu searched his memory and found that he had never heard of this name. It was obvious that he didn't know him. Perhaps the problem just now should be an internal problem of their company. As he thought up to there, he looked at Mu Weining and said, We have nothing to do in the morning anyway, so let's wait a little longer. All right. Mu Weining came out to buy a house because she had an ulterior motive. As long as she could be alone with Tan Xiu, it didn't matter where it was. Upon seeing that Tan Xiu and Tang Xiu were willing to wait, Li Jing immediately looked at them gratefully and personally changed their cups of tea. Then, just as he was about to go to the entrance to wait for his big boss, Fang Chang leisurely strolled over with his left hand in his pocket. His eyes swept over Mu Weining, and a stunned expression suddenly appeared on his face when he saw Mu Weining's appearance. However, he didn't dare to provoke the guests even though he had great power in this sales center. After all, those who could afford such a luxurious house worth tens of millions were not ordinary people. However, he did not dare to provoke Tan Xiu and Mu Weining, but he dared to teach Li Jing a lesson. He felt that if he could teach Li Jing a lesson in front of Mu Weining, he would be able to elevate his status. Therefore, he raised his chin and said, Li Jing, what's the situation here? Didn't you tell the client that Villa number 9 has been sold? Li Jing opened her mouth, and her face turned pale in an instant. Fang Chang raised his eyebrows and said, What about you? Although Villa number 9 has been sold, there are still 3 other villas that haven't been sold yet. If you don't think you're capable of providing customer service, then I'll do it myself. Tan Xiu frowned and looked at Li Jing, asking, What happened? Li Jing found that she could no longer hide the fire in the paper, so she simply hardened her heart and said, Mr. Tang, Miss Mu, I'm really sorry. Originally, when I introduced Villa number 9 to you and took you to visit Villa number 9, that villa still existed. But when I brought you back to draw up the contract, he told me that someone had booked Villa number 9 and that the other party would come to pay and sign the contract in the afternoon. As a matter of fact, according to our company's regulations, the villa belongs to whoever pays first. I argued with him, but he used his manager's identity to pressure me. I'm sorry, I've tried to remedy the situation. Please wait for a while. Fang Chang never dreamed that Li Jing would turn all the spearhead against him. Was she complaining to the client? Anger surged in his chest as he fiercely glared at Li Jing and scolded, What the hell are you talking about? Who used his manager's identity to pressure you? Li Jing, I suspect that there's something wrong with your work attitude. You're not worthy to be a staff member of our Roland Villa Complex's sales center. I hereby announce that you're fired. Go back and pack your things, and then leave. Manager Fang is so awe-inspiring. An indifferent voice came from the direction of the sales center's entrance. Several men and women clustered around a middle-aged man and strode over. The middle-aged man was the one who spoke. The familiar voice made Fang Chang's expression change. When he turned his head and saw Chen Bin, his heart suddenly thumped wildly. He quickly greeted him with a smile and said, Boss, why didn't you inform me in advance that you're coming? I could have brought some people to greet you outside. Chen Bin coldly snorted with a sullen face and said, Had I informed you in advance, I wouldn't have been able to see your lawless appearance, would I? It's not easy for the company to cultivate an excellent salesperson, yet you fired him with just a word? You even did it in front of the client. How awe-inspiring. Fang Chang's heart turned cold. As he was about to speak, he found that the boss didn't want to listen to him anymore. He quickly walked 2 steps to the young man sitting on the sofa. Are you Mr. Tang? Chen Bin came before Tan Xiu and respectfully asked. Do you know me? Asked Tan Xiu in surprise. Hello, Mr. Tang. I'm Chen Bin, the chairman of the Grand Group. This is my business card, said Chen Bin quickly. Our salesperson has told me all the grievances you and this young lady have suffered here. You can rest assured that our company has clear rules and regulations. Whoever pays the money first will have the house. So you don't need to worry about the house. Also, I'd like to apologize to you and this young lady. I'll try my best to make up for the grievances you've suffered due to the management personnel of our company. Oh. How do you want to make up for it? A smile appeared on Tan Xiu's face. He stood up and shook hands with Chen Bin. He then motioned Mu Weining to sit down and gave the seat to Chen Bin. Chen Bin was somewhat flattered as he sat in front of Tan Xiu and said, Mr. Tang, I'll directly fire the management personnel of our company. I'll also inform the real estate industry that he will be blacklisted by all major real estate companies in the future. This is your company's internal matter. It has nothing to do with us, said Tan Xiu. At the side, Feng Chang's complexion changed as he hurriedly shouted, Boss, you can't fire me. I'm the sales department manager and I have the right to fire my employees. Also, I didn't offend these 2 clients. Chen Bin abruptly turned his head and angrily shouted, Shut the hell up. Feng Chang's breathing stagnated and he didn't dare to speak again. Chen Bin immediately changed his expression and respectfully said, Mr. Tang, to make up for the grievances you've suffered in our company, I've decided to sell the 9th building to you for 1 yuan. What do you think? What? Tan Xiu was dumbfounded and Mu Weining also had an incredulous expression on her face. 1 yuan. 1 yuan to buy a luxury villa worth more than 60 million yuan. Is this some kind of international joke? At the side, Feng Chang looked at Chen Bin incredulously. He simply couldn't believe his ears. He could see that his big boss was not sick, but why? Li Jing was also shocked. She never dreamed that a simple phone call from her would cause the situation to become like this. Tan Xiu pondered for a moment and asked, Is it because of Han Jintong? Only part of the reason, said Chen Bin quickly. What's the other reason? Tan Xiu frowned. He told me not to tell anyone about him, Mr. Tang, said Chen Bin hesitantly. You're making things difficult for me. Tan Xiu said, There's a saying that goes, no work, no gain. We're here to buy a villa, not because we can't afford it. You won't even tell us the whole story, do you think we can easily accept your villa? Chen Bin pondered for a moment and then helplessly said, All right. Since you insist on asking, then I can only tell you. It's actually brother Jin Xinkue. I just received a call from the salesperson, Li Jing. Brother Jin is talking to me about something. Tan Xiu suddenly understood. He looked at Mu Weining and then nodded, I understand. Since this is Jin Xinkue's intention, then it's settled. You don't need to stay here. You can deal with your company's affairs by yourself. We'll buy the villa and then take care of other things later. Chen Bin quickly got up and said, Please wait for a moment. I'll immediately send someone to handle the procedures for you. As everyone left, Mu Weining leaned toward Tan Xiu and held Tan Xiu's arm. She let out a faint smile and said, Boyfriend, why do I suddenly have a feeling? Tan Xiu stared blankly for a moment. He glanced at Mu Weining's hand that was holding his arm and asked, What feeling? I'm being kept by someone, said Mu Weining with a chuckle. Cough, cough, Tan Xiu coughed twice and was at a loss whether he had to cry or laugh as he said, Don't talk nonsense. You're a rich woman now, do you still need someone to keep you? What happened today was just an accident. It's just an accident, yet it saved me more than 60 million yuan, said Mu Weining with a chuckle. Boyfriend, you really have a lot of power. Tan Xiu let out a forced smile and shook his head. He was thinking about what Jin Shinkue had paid for Chin Bin to sell a villa worth more than 60 million yuan. 10 minutes later, Li Jing came to Tan Xiu and Mu Weining with the purchase contract. At this moment, her attitude toward them had greatly changed. Her respect and cautiousness were proof that she was nervous inside. Quickly. After the contract was signed, Mu Weining searched for a long time but couldn't find a single yuan. Finally, Tan Xiu took out a yuan and handed it to her. He then said with a smile, "Don't be so reserved. We're not big tigers." "That's right, have you completed the personnel changes in your company?" "It's done. Feng Chang has been fired, and I've been promoted to the position of sales manager," said Li Jing gratefully. "Thank you, Mr. Tang, Miss Mu." "You're welcome." Tan Xiu waved his hand and said, "Your professionalism is quite good. However, I don't think Feng Chang is a good person, else he wouldn't deliberately make things difficult for a girl like you." Li Jing was almost moved to tears after hearing it. She came to this big city to live. She had made some achievements by relying on her own ability and even bought a small house with a mortgage. But she lived alone and had no one to help her in the face of difficulties. Today's encounter was the most heartwarming one she had ever had since she came to this city. "I'm really sorry. I finished writing this chapter last night. It was too late. I was so dazed that I forgot to update it on time. If it wasn't for the League's WeChat account, I wouldn't have known that I forgot to update it." Chapter 578. Tan Xiu waited for Mu Weining to sign the house purchase contract before the two of them directly left without even bidding farewell to Chin Bin. Although Tan Xiu was a bit indifferent to Chin Bin on the surface, he was still very grateful to him inside. On the way back, he called Jin Shinkue and thanked him. He told him that he would treat him to a drink tomorrow night and also told him to call Chin Bin. "Boyfriend, you're my idol now." Mu Weining grabbed the steering wheel and her eyes were full of splendor as she glanced at Tan Xiu. After seeing him hang up the phone, she said with a smile. Tan Xiu couldn't help laughing and said, "You're the first beauty in the imperial capital and the first campus belle of Shanghai University, yet you actually regard me as your idol?" "That's my honor." "Then, do I have the honor to treat my idol to lunch?" Mu Weining said with a smile. "Of course. You saved a lot of money today, so you must treat me to a big meal," Tan Xiu nodded and said with a smile. "I've inquired about it. There's a new Paradise Manor in Shanghai recently. I heard that the dishes there are very special, and the most important thing is that the environment there is also very good. Let's go there to have a meal." "Paradise Manor?" Tan Xiu stared blankly for a moment before he immediately said with a smile, "All right. That Paradise Manor is opened by Lulu, so maybe she can give us a discount." "Lulu? Ouyang Lulu?" Mu Weining had seen Ouyang Lulu, so her brows slightly furrowed. "Yeah, it's her," said Tan Xiu. Mu Weining pondered for a moment before she suddenly shook her head and said, "I've decided to treat you to a different place." "Why?" Tan Xiu was surprised. "Ouyang Lulu is too familiar with you, so I'm afraid that she won't accept the money like she did today," said Mu Weining with a straight face. "I said I'll treat you to a meal, so you're going to let me spend the money for today's meal, no?" Tan Xiu listened to Mu Weining's fallacy and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Mu Weining glanced at Tan Xiu again, but she didn't speak again. She was very clear about one thing in her heart: Ouyang Lulu was Tan Xiu's confidant. Her family was a big clan in Jingmen Island, but she unexpectedly ran to Shanghai to open a restaurant. Perhaps, just like what she thought, she wanted to be closer to Tan Xiu in Shanghai. In other words, she was likely to be his competitor. In the end, Mu Weining picked a high-class restaurant in Shanghai and treated Tan Xiu to a feast. In terms of price, the two of them were even more extravagant with a 5-digit figure. Since they had classes in the afternoon, the two of them returned to Shanghai University after lunch. After agreeing to look for a renovation team together, they went their separate ways. Leisurely time always passed quickly. In the blink of an eye, Tan Xiu had been back from the capital for half a month. During this half a month, he occasionally went out to drink with Jin Xingkue and occasionally accepted Gu Changmin and Zhang Yueming's invitation to have a small gathering with them. Even Ouyang Lulu came to him a few times and pestered him for a few days. As for the rest of the time, he would attend classes at school when he had classes and teach Dai Xinyue about traditional Chinese medicine in Blue Star Villa complex when he had no classes. Even at this time, he would cram on a lot of traditional Chinese medicine knowledge. The early morning sun was particularly bright and beautiful. After breakfast, Tan Xiu received a call from Kawako and learned that she had come to Shanghai. Tan Xiu asked her about her intentions in coming to Shanghai, but Kawako mysteriously kept him guessing. No classes on Saturday, no classes on Sunday, and no classes on Monday today. I've been staying at home for 2 days, so it's time to go out for a stroll. Tan Xiu stood on the balcony and Chen Xiaowan's appearance emerged in his mind. Since their last meeting, they hadn't seen each other in more than half a month, except for a casual chat on the phone. Ah, that's right. Sis Xiaowan seems to be working in the brisk trading group. Tan Xiu had thought about poaching Chen Xiaowan to work in the magnificent Tang Corp, but he hadn't found the right opportunity to mention it to her since they had just met. I'm going to find her. After making up his mind, Tan Xiu went downstairs to the garage and even picked the Adra R sports car. He was ready to play the role of a playboy to support his older sister. On the way to the brisk trading group, Tan Xiu thought about Sujinin again. Sujinin was working in the imperial capital now. Although her position and salary were quite good, she was just a senior white-collar worker, after all, and it was somewhat inappropriate for her to stay there alone. He was quite ruthless sometimes, but after his relationship with Sujinin in the imperial capital improved a bit, he had the idea to let Sujinin leave the imperial capital and work in the magnificent Tang Corporation. Not to mention that if it weren't for Sujinin, it would have been impossible for him to know Chen Xiaowan. Therefore, after hesitating for a while, he put on his Bluetooth headset and dialed Sujinin's number. What's up? Sujinin's cold voice came from the phone. However, Tang Xiu could tell from her words that she had saved his number. How have you been recently? Did you suffer any grievances working in the imperial capital? Asked Tan Xiu. Thanks to you, boss treats me very well now, said Sujinin. It's not a long-term plan for you to work alone in the imperial capital, said Tan Xiu. You can work in the magnificent Tang Corp if you want. Kang Xia has been preparing for a big move recently and has decided to set up branch offices in major provinces in the country. You can choose any province except the imperial capital and Shanghai to be the branch's general manager. Sujinin fell into silence. Although her job in the imperial capital was very good, she still felt a bit depressed. After all, she was all alone in the imperial capital. It was fine in normal times as she would occasionally go out with her friends. But every time she was sick and uncomfortable, she always hoped to have her loved ones by her side. Especially last week, when she had a bad cold and was lying in bed, no one even brought her a bottle of water. Even at that time, she suddenly felt that even if Tan Xiu was there, she would still feel a trace of warmth. Looking at Sujinin's silence, Tan Xiu lightly said, "You don't need to rush to give me an answer. After all, the establishment of the branch offices in each province has yet to be officially scheduled. I'm afraid it will take another 10 days. Just think about it and tell me when you've made up your mind." All right. Sujinin let out an imperceptible grunt. Let me tell you something, said Tan Xiu. I met Sis Xiaowan in Shanghai. Chen Xiaowan. Sujinin stared blankly and hurriedly asked. That's right. She works in a foreign-funded enterprise in Shanghai, said Tan Xiu. Can you give me her contact number? Sujinin quickly said. We separated after graduating from high school. We occasionally contacted each other during college, but we eventually broke off contact due to various reasons. I wanted to find her after graduation, but I found that she had changed her contact number. All right. I'll send it to your cell phone later. After hanging up the phone, Tan Xiu sent Qin Xiaowan's cell phone number to Sujinin. At the brisk trading group, Qin Xiaowan was in a very bad mood. Sitting in the office chair, she looked at the angry expression of her boss who parachuted into the company. She was disheartened. As the vice president of the Human Resources Department, she was appreciated by her previous boss and usually worked very comfortably. But just over a week ago, her immediate boss resigned from the position of the Human Resources Department's general manager due to illness and strongly recommended her to the company's top management to be the Human Resources Department's general manager. Unfortunately, the sudden appearance of a general manager made her unable to get the opportunity to be promoted. It would have been fine if it was only this. But the most depressing thing was that this general manager who parachuted into her position was her archenemy during college, the former vice president of the student union, Miao Xinran. You're abusing your position to avenge a private grudge. Qin Xiaowan suppressed her anger and looked at Miao Xinran, whose hands were pressed on her desk. Qin Xiaowan, please don't be so narrow-minded. Miao Xinran angrily said. The grudge between us in the past was indeed because your ability was better and you finally became the student union president. But that's all in the past, and I've long forgotten about it. Now, I'm the Human Resources Department's general manager of the Brisk Trading Group, while you're just the vice president, my subordinate. I have the right to arrange your work. After saying that, the anger on Miao Xinran's face suddenly subsided by more than half. Instead, there was a trace of pride on her face as she said, "Who told you not to have the ability to marry a good man? My husband is the vice president of the Brisk Trading Group. He's very powerful and has a deep background in Japan. But what about you? I heard that you got dumped by a wild man not long ago, right? I can still see the color of the green hat on your head. You bastard." Qin Xiaowan suddenly got up and angrily cursed. Miao Xinran sneered, "What's wrong? Are you angry out of shame? Let me tell you, I need to send some people to the Western Branch. I know the conditions there are a bit hard, but the welfare and benefits are not reduced. So, you have to go, even if you don't want to. Otherwise, pack your things and get the hell out of here." After saying that, she didn't give Qin Xiaowan time to speak. She raised her chin and walked outside with her hateful high heels. Qin Xiaowan gasped for a few breaths and an unwilling look appeared in her eyes. It was very difficult to be promoted in a Japanese company, unless one's performance was particularly outstanding. Only then would there be a very small chance of being promoted. She had worked herself to death and achieved good results before she was barely promoted to the position of vice president of the Human Resources Department. But now, she knew that she couldn't stay here any longer. She didn't want to leave Shanghai. Had it been more than half a month ago, she might have considered going to the western region. But now, she was no longer alone in Shanghai. She also had her little brother, Tan Xiu. Ring, 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 her cell phone rang, interrupting her thoughts. Qin Xiaowan picked up the phone and looked at the caller ID. She found that it was an unfamiliar number from the imperial capital. She wanted to hang up, but she hesitated and adjusted her mood. After picking up the call, she said, "Who is it, Xiaowan?" "Xiaowan?" Sujinin's voice came from the phone. Qin Xiaowan was startled. The voice was somewhat familiar, but she couldn't remember who it was for a while. Just as she wanted to ask who the other party was, Sujinin's appearance suddenly appeared in her mind. Suddenly, her mood fluctuated. With a trace of expectation and excitement, she tentatively asked, "Yening?" Chapter 579. Qin Xiaowan once fantasized that she would be very rich in the future, but she never dared to imagine that she would have tens of millions of pocket money. It was because this amount was too far away from her. But now, the younger brother whom she once misunderstood had opened his heart and told her that he would give her tens of millions of pocket money. It made her so scared that her beautiful face turned pale and she nearly choked to death on her own saliva. After a long while, Only then did Chen Xiaowan speak with a flirtatious smile, "Don't talk nonsense, brother. Don't say that I don't dare to accept such a huge amount. Even if you force me to accept it, I'll be too scared to sleep. I absolutely can't accept it. If you have money but no place to spend it, then do some charity work. There are a lot of rich people nowadays, but there are even more poor people. I've adopted a lot of street children and helped Star City Chinese Medical Hospital set up a charity fund," said Tan Xiu with a smile. "Although what I've done now is just a drop in the bucket, I'll make persistent efforts in the future." "That's right." Chen Xiaowan nodded with satisfaction and couldn't hide the appreciation in her eyes. Just as the two of them were enjoying their coffee and chatting, a beautiful girl walked into the cafe. She was wearing a black exercise suit, and behind her were two well-proportioned women in black suits. "Greetings, boss." Kawako came to Tan Xiu's side and greeted with cupped fists. The two women behind her knelt on one knee with one hand on their knee and the other on the ground. Tan Xiu, who had his back to the cafe's door, turned his head upon hearing Kawako's voice. When he saw the two women behind her, he immediately furrowed his brows and said in a deep voice, "Get up." Chen Xiaowan also followed the voice and looked at Kawako. When she clearly saw Kawako's appearance, her beautiful eyes suddenly stared wide and filled with disbelief. She suddenly jumped up from the sofa, looking panicked and restless. Tan Xiu was keenly aware of Chen Xiaowan's unusual behavior. Although he was a bit surprised inwardly, he still looked at Kawako and said, "You know I don't like people to be too reserved in front of me, so restrain your men and change the way they kneel in front of me." Kawako was startled upon hearing this and a look of fear and trepidation appeared on her face. She quickly replied respectfully, "Understood. This subordinate will definitely teach him well." Tan Xiu nodded in response. He got up and pulled Chen Xiaowan to his side. After asking her to sit next to him, he pointed to the opposite sofa and motioned for Kawako to sit there. This time, Kawako was much smarter and immediately ordered her two men to wait on the sofa next door. "Speak. You suddenly came to Shanghai from Japan, what do you have to give me?" Kawako placed the suitcase in front of Tan Xiu and respectfully said, "Boss, this is something my men snatched from some explorers." The group of explorers hired a very powerful mercenary group from abroad, and the result was amazing. "This thing is the most important thing among those harvests. I think it's pretty good, so I immediately rushed over to present it to you after I got it." Tan Xiu nodded and gently opened the suitcase. Despite having a tough mind, Tan Xiu still couldn't help but gasp after seeing the item inside the suitcase. As a supreme in the immortal world, he had obtained countless precious things, so even the most precious treasures in the immortal world couldn't make him reveal such a shocked expression. The chrono crystal. What was the thing that Tan Xiu wanted the most at present? It was naturally the chrono crystal. It was because one of the treasures that cured his disciple, Gu Yan. He had imagined countless times that he would have to wait until he was strong enough to get the chrono crystal. Then, he would have to travel to the surrounding starfields. Even if he had to travel far and face some dangers, he must get it. Who would have thought that the chrono crystal that he yearned for even in his dreams was now right in front of him? The most unbelievable thing was that it was given to him by Kawako. All of a sudden, Tan Xiu raised his head and stared at Kawako, asking in a deep voice, "How did you get this thing? Where did you get it?" "It was in the Alps," said Kawako respectfully. Among the mercenaries hired by the expedition team, two of them were elites trained by the Yamamoto family. Coincidentally, a few months ago, I met them when they snuck back to the family. Then, I controlled them and they became my trusted subordinates. Therefore, after they reported the purpose of the expedition, I became interested and sent a lot of people to help them. In the end, the harvest was quite bountiful. The Alps? A firm look appeared in Tan Xiu's eyes as he decided to find some time to go there. After all, it was definitely not an ordinary place for the chrono crystal to appear there. At this moment, he originally regarded Kawako as a chess piece, but now, he was truly grateful to her. Although he had her under his control, she followed him from the bottom of her heart. She was willing to give such an important treasure to him, indicating that she was very good, very good. Tan Xiu reached out to close the suitcase. The moment he closed it, he took out 2 bottles of medicinal pills from his interspatial ring and put them inside without anyone noticing. Then, he said, the things inside are part of your reward. You've done a great job this time, and I'm very satisfied. This thing may be a relatively hard crystal in the eyes of others, but it's the best treasure in my eyes. Stay in Demonic City for a few days. I'll assign 10 experts to follow you and help you later. 10 experts. Kawako was excited inwardly. Although she didn't know what the reward in the suitcase Tan Xiu mentioned was, those 10 experts were too important for her. She had seen Tan Xiu's men. Each and every one of them was very powerful and she couldn't deal with many of them. And now, the struggle for power and profit in her family was the most intense. Although she had learned the soul-ruling art from Tan Xiu and could control the life and death of others, she still felt that the number of experts under her was too little. She believed that the number of true experts under her was too little. If those 10 experts were to follow her, she believed that she would soon be able to open up a new situation in her family and become an outstanding figure in the new generation of her family, as well as the first successor to the patriarch. Thank you, boss. Kawako thanked him from the bottom of her heart. Tan Xiu shook his head. He wanted to rush to Jingmen Island immediately after getting the chrono crystal. However, Kawako had just arrived in Demonic City and Chen Xiaowan was still with her, so it was not appropriate for him to leave now. After weighing the pros and cons, he felt that he didn't need to be too impatient. It was already too late today, so he could just wait until tomorrow to rush to Jingmen Island. Tan Xiu fiddled with the chrono crystal for a while and then quietly put it into his interspatial ring. He then turned to the dumbfounded Chen Xiaowan and said, Sis Xiaowan, your expression was a bit strange when you saw Kawako. What's going on? Chen Xiaowan didn't hear the conversation between Tan Xiu and Kawako clearly. She was struck by a tempestuous storm since she never dreamed that the subordinate Tan Xiu mentioned turned out to be Kawako. At this moment, she felt Tan Xiu's arm touch her, waking her up as though she was in a dream. She hurriedly got up and asked, Brother, what's wrong? Tan Xiu frowned and said, Sis Xiaowan, what's going on with you? How come seeing Kawako is like seeing a monster? Do you know each other? Kawako looked at Chen Xiaowan and shook her head. I don't know this young lady, boss. Chen Xiaowan secretly gulped. She hesitated for a while and then whispered, Brother, she's the big boss of the Brisk Trading Group. I've seen her at a company celebration. Tan Xiu was stunned. Kawako was also stunned. She pondered for a moment and suddenly said, You're talking about the Brisk Trading Group. There seems to be such a company among the businesses under my control. But I'm too busy, so I've handed most of the business to my subordinates to take care of. I only occasionally pay attention to it. Chen Xiaowan's heartbeat sped up a few beats. She was even more shocked by Kawako's identity. After all, the Brisk Trading Group was a large listed company. Yet, it was only one of the many companies under her control. How much wealth did she have? No. She's Tan Xiu's subordinate. That means, Chen Xiaowan turned her head with difficulty and looked at Tan Xiu in disbelief. Tan Xiu didn't expect that Chen Xiaowan's original company turned out to be one of the companies under Kawako's control. Recalling how he accompanied Chen Xiaowan to play and talked about the problems she encountered in the company today, Tan Xiu suddenly thought of a fun game. Kawako, let me introduce you. This is my god-sister, Chen Xiaowan. I came from a poor family when I was a teenager, so Sis Xiaowan was very good to me. She's like my biological sister in my heart. However, she was an employee of the Brisk Trading Group before this morning. She was wronged in your company and was kicked out. Do you think it's interesting? Tan Xiu said with a faint smile. Whoosh, Kawako suddenly got up from the sofa and said with a nervous expression, It's my fault, boss. Please punish me. I don't mean to punish you. Tan Xiu waved his hand and said, I just don't think this sister of mine can be wronged in vain. Kawako pondered for a moment. She was quick-witted and immediately came up with an idea. She respectfully said, Boss, since Sis Chen was wronged in the brisk trading group, then I'll definitely make the people who wronged her pay a painful price. Please give me a chance to invite Sis Chen to work in the brisk trading group again. I'll make her the general manager of the brisk trading group. The entire brisk trading group will be her private property in the future. What do you think about it? I don't think it's necessary to give it to Sis Xiaowan for free. Tan Xiu waved his hand. But I think it's a good idea to let her take the position of the brisk trading group's general manager. Sis Xiaowan, what do you think? Chapter 580. Upon hearing it, Chen Xiaowan hastily waved her hand and said, No, no, no. Don't joke with big sis, brother. I'm perfectly aware of my own ability. If I were to take the position of general manager, I'm afraid it wouldn't take long for the whole company to go bankrupt. Tan Xiu pondered for a moment and simply said, Since you don't want to be the general manager of the brisk trading group, then be the vice general manager. Isn't the husband of that classmate who bullied you the vice general manager of the brisk trading group? It shouldn't be a problem for you to replace him, right? Brother, is this appropriate? Chen Xiaowan hesitated. If it's not appropriate, then I'll tell Kawako to give you the entire brisk trading group. Tan Xiu asked back. You can do whatever you want with it. Chen Xiaowan hurriedly said, No, no, no. Vice General Manager it is. I'll definitely work hard in the future. Tan Xiu couldn't help laughing and said, Haven't you seen it yet, Sis Xiaowan? Nobody will dare to make things difficult for you in the future, no matter if you work hard or not. Ah, you. You can be said to be hugging a big tree in the brisk trading group. If anyone dares to bully you, just call Kawako directly. She can take care of it for you. Big Sis Chen, you can do whatever you want in the brisk trading group, said Kawako quickly. Chen Xiaowan looked at Kawako and then shifted her eyes to Tan Xiu. She suddenly found that the world had changed really fast. She was full of grievances and confusion about the future when she was fired. After a day of crazy fun, the plot suddenly took a 360-degree turn. It could be said that she now worshipped Tan Xiu from the bottom of her heart. She hadn't seen her little brother for many years, yet he unexpectedly possessed such terrifying power and became her god of protection. Half an hour later, Tan Xiu sent Chen Xiaowan back to her residence and watched her enter the building before he started the car and left. After thinking about it for a while, he still couldn't hold back and decided to rush to Jingmen Island overnight. The next morning, when Tan Xiu drove the Ajurar luxury supercar to Jingmen Island's everlasting feast hall, Ji Qimei, who had been notified in advance, was already waiting in the parking lot. Supreme Lord. Ji Qimei didn't know that Tan Xiu had obtained the chrono crystal. However, seeing Tan Xiu rush here in the middle of the night, she understood that something big must have happened. Tan Xiu said, Give me the demonic revival grass. Ji Qimei stared blankly for a moment before she immediately took out the demonic revival grass from her interspatial ring and respectfully handed it over to Tan Xiu. Subsequently, both of them came to the entrance of the Linglong Treasure Pagoda in the middle of the sea. Tan Xiu ordered, Stand guard here, do not allow anyone to take half a step into the Linglong Treasure Pagoda, not even Xiao Shui or the Light and Dark siblings. Yes. Ji Qimei was confused, but she still answered respectfully. On the 7th floor of the Linglong Treasure Pagoda, Tan Xiu's clothes were thin, but he was able to ignore the frigid cold. Looking at Gu Yan, lying flat on the ice bed, the demonic revival grass in his hand flew up in an instant. Under the pressure of the star force, it finally condensed into a drop of emerald green condensed liquid essence. Tan Xiu sent this drop of condensed liquid essence into Gu Yan's mouth. The cobblestone-sized chrono crystal was carefully placed between Gu Yan's eyebrows by Tan Xiu. In an instant, an incomparably violent energy burst out from Gu Yen's lying flat body. If it weren't for Tan Xiu's current strength being very strong, just this violent energy alone would have crushed his internal organs into meat paste. At the same time, 2 meters around Gu Yen's body, visible to the naked eye, appeared out of thin air. Streams of space force flowed into Gu Yen's body like a clear spring. Time flowed by. A layer of light curtain gradually condensed around Gu Yen's. As time went on, the thickness of the light curtain kept increasing. In the end, it was like a cocoon-emitting light curtain that enveloped Gu Yen's. Magic City. At the Brisk Trading Group's HQ, Taro Ono, the general manager of China's branch company, received a notice from his big boss early in the morning that she would come to the company for an inspection today. The news was very sudden, but Taro Ono was very excited. A few years ago, he was just an economic talent cultivated by the Yamamoto family with a very low status. Later on, Kawako picked him out and trained him for 2 years. Then, she arranged for him to go to China and made him the general manager of the Brisk Trading Group. His status suddenly improved by leaps and bounds. Therefore, he was very grateful to Kawako from the bottom of his heart. He even told himself countless times that he would be her most loyal subordinate. After he came to China, he worked hard and expanded the Brisk Trading Group's scale several times. At the same time, he also learned that his big boss's status in the Yamamoto family had been improving recently. She was even on par with several others in the patriarch's competition. This news. It was like injecting him with a shot of stimulant. He couldn't wait to develop the Brisk Trading Group better and accumulate more capital wealth for his big boss, Kawako, so that she would have more capital to compete for the patriarch's position in the Yamamoto family. Therefore, he hurried to the company early in the morning and made a series of arrangements before quietly waiting for his big boss's arrival. In the spacious hall on the first floor of the Brisk Trading Group's building, dozens of the company's executives were standing in 2 rows, with hundreds of low-level management members standing behind them. Taro Ono stood in the middle, pacing back and forth with an expectant look on his face. As the vice president of the Brisk Trading Group, Masakio Kato could be said to be second only to one person in the company and had great authority. He used to be Kawako's classmate and was appointed to work in China's Brisk Trading Group because of this relationship. Today, he was particularly excited and even asked his wife, Miao Shinran, to dress him up. His suit was neat, his tie was neat, and even his shoes were polished. Kato-kun, is there any problem with my clothes? Taro Ono suddenly stopped and turned to look at Masakio Kato. Masakio Kato hurriedly paced 2 steps forward and scrutinized Taro Ono, saying, "There's no problem. You look great." Taro Ono nodded with satisfaction. Clatter, 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 the sound of high-heeled shoes stepping on the ground came from outside the building's entrance. In a flash, everyone's eyes shifted toward the entrance. What's going on? Taro Ono slightly furrowed his brows with a displeased look in his eyes. It was because he didn't see his big boss, Kawako Yamamoto, but an employee of the Brisk Trading Group. He vaguely remembered that this woman was a management member of the HR department. General Manager, Vice General Manager, I'm sorry I'm late. Although Chen Xiaowan had a well-thought-out plan at this time and knew that she could do whatever she wanted in the Brisk Trading Group in the future with Kawako as her backing, she was still a bit nervous in front of Taro Ono and Masakio Kato. Most importantly, there were hundreds of high-level and low-level management members of the company watching them. Anger rose inside Taro Ono's heart as he said in a deep voice, "You should have received a notice last night that you must arrive at the company before 8:00 today. Tell me why you're late." Because she's been fired. She's no longer an employee of our Brisk Trading Group. In the crowd, Miao Shinran was slightly stunned at first upon seeing Chen Xiaowan's appearance. Then, she looked ecstatic. After Taro Ono finished speaking, she rushed out and spoke aloud. Taro Ono stared blankly for a moment before he angrily asked, "She's been fired, so why is she still in the company?" "I don't know, General Manager," said Miao Shinran with a mocking tone. She did pack up her things yesterday and left our company. Who would have thought that she would come back now? Maybe she felt too much pain from being fired, so her brain had a problem and she foolishly ran here to be a big-tail wolf. Look, her expression is very awkward and angry. Now that she has been exposed by me, she must be very ashamed. Do you want me to tell the security to kick her out? She's been fired, so kick her out. Taro Ono said with dissatisfaction. At this moment, Masakio Kato suddenly stood up and said, hold on. General Manager, I think she's an employee of our brisk trading group, yet she inexplicably appeared in our company. She must have some ulterior motive. I suggest that we don't kick her out yet. Let the security guards escort her to the security room. We'll interrogate her again after the big boss finishes his inspection. Clap, clap, clap. Crisp applause came from the building's entrance. Kawako Yamamoto, dressed in professional attire, entered the building along with more than a dozen men she brought from Japan. Kato-kun is a conscientious and responsible person. You're really worthy to be my old classmate. I appreciate you very much. I almost wanted to make you the general manager of the brisk trading group, said Kawako loudly with a trace of contempt in her eyes. Upon seeing Kawako's arrival, a stunned expression flashed in Masakio Kato's eyes. He immediately strode forward and greeted her with a flattering smile, hello, boss. Thank you for your appreciation. On behalf of the company, I'd like to welcome you to inspect our work. At this moment, Taro Ono should have been the one to greet Masakio Kato, but it was snatched away by Masakio Kato, causing him to be furious inwardly. However, he also knew that Masakio Kato was a former classmate of the big boss, so he sighed helplessly and greeted, welcome to the inspection, boss. Kawako nodded with a cold arrogance and suddenly asked, Kato-kun, I heard that you got married a few years ago. Furthermore, you're married to an outstanding woman from China. I wonder if you can let me see her. Not far away. Miao Shinran's eyes lit up. The big boss' appreciation of her husband made her very excited. Upon hearing the big boss mentioning her, she nearly ran to the front of Kawako and respectfully said, hello, boss. I'm Miao Shinran, Kato-kun's wife. Kawako smiled and nodded. Not bad. She's quite a beautiful woman. Her skin is also well maintained, so it should be very elastic, right? After saying that, Kawako suddenly raised her hand and fiercely slapped Miao Shinran's face. 5 bright red fingerprints appeared on her face as the slap sent Miao Shinran flying several meters away and heavily fell to the ground. Chapter 581. What's going on? Hundreds of executives and bottom-level managers of the company were dumbfounded as they watched the scene in disbelief. Even the deputy general manager, Masakio Kato, was dumbfounded at the moment. Praising his wife's good skin, yet wanting to know how elastic it was there a need to slap her? Kawako lifted the palm that slapped Miao Shinran and nodded in praise, it does feel good. No wonder Big Sis Chen wanted to slap her face a few times. Kato, I never thought that you'd be so lucky to marry a wife with such elastic skin. Congratulations. Congratulations my ass. Masakio Kato cursed inwardly, yet squeezed out a smile on his face and said, you're too polite, boss. I'll immediately tell my wife to give you some of the cosmetics she usually uses. Kawako's expression turned cold and she said in a cold voice, Kato, do you think this lady needs cosmetics to cover up my ugliness? Masakio Kato's expression instantly changed and he replied in fear and trepidation, no, no, no. Boss, you're a natural beauty. You're like a goddess who descended to earth. You don't need cosmetics to cover up your ugliness. Kawako snorted coldly and walked to the disbelieving Miao Shinran. She pulled her up from the ground and asked, are you all right? I'm fine. Miao Shinran was about to explode with anger, yet she could only endure the humiliation and force a smile. The corner of Kawako's mouth curled into a smile. She raised her hand and slapped Miao Shinran a few more times, especially the last slap. She used a lot of strength and directly flung Miao Xinran 5+ meters away before she heavily fell to the ground. Since you're fine, then I'll make you suffer, Kawako said in a deep voice with a bit of overbearing tone. At this moment, everyone could see that this big boss was not testing whether Miao Xinran's skin was good or not. It was obvious that she wanted to slap her. However, everyone was also very curious. How did Miao Xinran offend the big boss? She was actually humiliated by the big boss in public. Masakio Kato was completely dumbfounded. He was a smart man, so how could he not see Kawako's real intention? Yet, he couldn't figure out how his wife had offended her to the point that she wanted to beat her in public. Boss, do you have a problem with that? Kawako coldly shouted. Masayoshi Kato's heart trembled, and the words he was about to say were swallowed back into his stomach. He was well aware of how much power Kawako had. Let alone his wife being beaten in public, he wouldn't dare to offend her even if he was killed in public. Unless, he was tired of living. Trash. Kawako looked at Masakio Kato's expression and coldly said. Then, she shifted to Taro Ono and said, "How are you feeling now, Mr. Ono?" Taro Ono's forehead was covered with cold sweat, showing a frightened look. Although Kawako reprimanded Masakio Kato and beat up his wife made him very happy, he was afraid that he would end up in the same situation if he said the wrong thing and said the same thing to Kawako. "I'm in a good mood to see you, boss. I feel very honored." Kawako nodded in satisfaction. She then turned around and walked to Qin Xiaowan's side, pulling her hand and saying, "You're in a good mood, so take care of Big Sis Chen in the company later. I won't spare you if you dare to let her suffer even the slightest grievance." Yes, yes, yes. Taro Ono hurriedly nodded and took the opportunity to secretly look at Qin Xiaowan. Never in his wildest dreams did he expect that a small deputy manager of his company's HR department would have the backing of a big boss. Furthermore, what kind of identity did this big boss have? She actually called her Big Sis Chen. Who exactly was this woman? What kind of terrifying background did she have? Kawako looked around and saw the nervous faces of the company's executives and bottom-level managers. Then, she said in a deep voice, "I hereby announce that Masakio Kato is dismissed from his post and will no longer be the deputy manager of the Brisk Trading Group. Big Sis Qin Xiaowan will replace him and become the new deputy general manager of the Brisk Trading Group." Clap, 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 warm applause reverberated throughout the hall. Masakio Kato was dumbfounded. Never in his wildest dreams did he expect that Kawako would announce such a personnel appointment. He was the deputy general manager of the Brisk Trading Group, an old classmate of Kawako's. He had worked hard for the Brisk Trading Group and made great contributions. Now, he was fired just like that. Kawako angrily shouted, "Do you think you're qualified to call my name? Get the hell out of China. Don't ever let me see you again." Masakio Kato's complexion instantly turned livid. He shot a deep look at Qin Xiaowan and seemed to muster up a lot of courage to ask aloud, "Boss, I need you to give me a reason. After all, I've done a lot of things for the Brisk Trading Group all these years. Even if I don't have any meritorious deeds, I still have my hard work. Talking about meritorious deeds and hard work with me?" Kawako sneered. "No problem, then I'll tell you. You married a good wife. Not only did she bully my Big Sis Chen, but she also fired her from the company and made her suffer. Let me tell you, anyone who dares to make Big Sis Chen suffer will have a very miserable end. I'm already lenient to you by dealing with this matter like this. Otherwise, Masakio Kato finally understood that all of this was caused by his wife, Miao Xinran. A flame of anger was ignited in his heart and was about to start a prairie fire in the blink of an eye. He sprinted to Miao Xinran's side and picked her up from the ground. Then, he fiercely slapped her swollen face a dozen times and cursed loudly, "It's all because of you, bitch. Who can't you provoke? Why must you provoke Miss Chen? Divorce." This father must divorce you, you unlucky bastard. Don't even think about getting a cent of my property. Miao Shinran was in despair. She finally understood why Kawako wanted to clean her up. It turned out to be because of that bitch, Qin Shaowan. In just a few minutes, her beautiful appearance had turned into a pig's head. But what she cared about the most was not the beating, but the words of her husband, Masakio Kato. Divorce? Leaving the family with nothing? At this moment, Miao Shinran even had the thought of dying. The reason why she could live such a comfortable life was because Masakio Kato could make money and provide her extravagant expenses. If he were to abandon her and she couldn't get a penny, how could she live in the future? All of a sudden, she turned to look at Qin Shaowan like a drowning person grabbing a life-saving straw. After being thrown to the ground by Masakio Kato, she nearly crawled to Qin Shaowan and knelt on the ground, crying and begging, "Shaowan, it's all my fault. Please forgive me. Please don't let the boss fire me or my husband. Please, I beg you, for the sake that we used to be classmates." This, Qin Shaowan was kind-hearted by nature. She couldn't bear to see Miao Shinran fall into such a miserable end. Just as she was about to speak, Kawako kicked Miao Shinran a few meters away. She then grabbed Qin Shaowan's wrist and affectionately pulled her to the elevator. "Big sis Qin, I'll tell someone to clean up the best office for you. I'll take you there." Qin Shaowan hesitated and secretly sighed inwardly as she was pulled away by Kawako. 7 days later. Tan Xiu was sitting cross-legged in the corner of the 7th floor of the exquisite pagoda while staring at the light screen. Suddenly, his expression moved. He could keenly sense the fluctuation of immortal force coming from the light screen, as well as the cracks on the light screen. Kacha, the light screen turned into sparkling lights and completely shattered. Gu Yan, who was originally lying on the ice bed, opened her eyes at this time. Her eyes were as beautiful as the stars, filled with shock and disbelief. "How do you feel, Yan, Tan Xiu floated up and approached Gu Yan, a few steps as he asked anxiously. Gu Yan, blinked and suddenly appeared in front of Tan Xiu. Her delicate body pressed against Tan Xiu's chest and her slender arms hugged Tan Xiu. She then said with an excited and trembling voice, "Master, my injuries have healed. This feeling is really great." Intense ecstasy rose in Tan Xiu's heart. Ever since he learned that Gu Yan, came to Earth for him and was injured by Shade Demon Zhu Wushou's Twilight Nightmare, he was eager to get the demonic revival grass and the chrono crystal to completely heal Gu Yan's injuries. Now, his dream had come true. After the excitement, Tan Xiu was still a bit worried. He reached out to grab Gu Yan's wrist and felt the situation in her body. However, when he pressed his finger on Gu Yan's wrist and felt her pulse for more than 10 seconds, his brows slightly wrinkled. He found that although Gu Yan's injuries had healed, there was almost no trace of immortal force in her body. There was even a special energy fluctuation lingering around her heart. "That's," Tan Xiu repeatedly observed for a long time, his brows furrowing even tighter. "Profoundine devil force?" Tan Xiu finally determined that the energy lingering around Gu Yan's heart was Shade Demon Zhu Wushou's heart blood. The profoundine force and devil force were infused into the heart blood. This kind of energy was of a very high level. It was comparable to divine power, but not much inferior. "This is troublesome." Tan Xiu frowned and looked up at the smiling Gu Yan. Tan Xiu sighed inwardly and said, "How much has your strength been affected, Yan? "My strength hasn't been affected much, master." Gu Yan chuckled. "It's just that the profoundine devil force in my heart is very special, and it will take me a long time to refine it. However, I don't need to worry about falling into a deep slumber. I just need to use the cold air here to suppress it and refine it bit by bit." "You can't leave the exquisite pagoda for the time being?" asked Tan Xiu. "There's no way for the time being." Gu Yan nodded. "But I'll be able to completely refine that profoundine devil force in a few years at most. At that time, Not only will my cultivation not be affected, but I might even be able to profit from this disaster and advance my cultivation to the next level. Chapter 582. Tan Xiu heavily nodded and exhorted, then you can refine the Black Yin demonic force here with peace of mind. Just leave the outside matters to me. You can go out with me after you've completely solved this problem. Gu Yan nodded with a smile and snuggled up to Tan Xiu for a long time. Only then did she smile and asked, "Have you found the chrono crystal, master?" I originally thought that it was impossible to find the chrono crystal on Earth, so I've long planned to go to the starfield outside Earth to look for it after I can break through the atmosphere. Tan Xiu smilingly said. Who would have thought that one of my subordinates inadvertently found the chrono crystal when he was protecting a pair of explorers in the Alps? My subordinate didn't know about the chrono crystal, but he realized that it was a very precious ore. Hence, he sent it to Demonic City. Gu Yan suddenly understood and smilingly said, "It seems that my luck is really good, master. Also, there are too many good things on Earth. Countless people in the immortal world want to get their hands on these treasures, yet there are so many of them on Earth. I think there must be a very important reason for this." That's right. Tan Xiu nodded. It's a pity that my current cultivation is too low. I don't dare to go to many places even on Earth. But you, after the Black Yin demonic force in your body is completely refined, you can take this master to walk around. I'm sure it won't be a problem with you around. Gu Yan's eyes lit up and she nodded with a bit of excitement. I'll definitely work hard to completely refine the Black Yin demonic force as soon as possible, master. After the master and disciple chatted for a long time, Tan Xiu smilingly said, "Since I used the chrono crystal and the demonic revival grass to treat you, I told Qi Mei and Light and Dark to stay outside. Now that you're awake, let them come in. Master, although there's still a hidden danger of the Black Yin demonic force in my body, it's not a problem to go outside for an hour or two a day." Gu Yan chuckled. "I want to go out and have a meal with you. Let's not call them in and just go out directly." Tan Xiu pondered for a moment before he slowly nodded and said, "If that's the case, then we can go out. But you must remember, you must not leave the Linglong Treasure Pagoda for more than 2 hours every day. It's best if you don't go out if you can." "All right." Gu Yanner nodded with a smile. Outside the Linglong Treasure Pagoda, Qi Mei was sitting cross-legged, while the Light and Dark siblings were also sitting cross-legged in cultivation. Only Gu Xiaoxue was pacing anxiously. She didn't know why her Grand Master suddenly came to Jingmen Island. She also didn't know why her Grand Master had entered the exquisite pagoda for such a long time without coming out. Boom, the door of the pagoda opened automatically, and 2 figures floated out from the inner door. "Ma. Master." Gu Xiaoxue's body trembled, and her eyes were filled with disbelief. Qi Mei and the Light and Dark siblings also opened their eyes in an instant. When they saw Gu Yan by Tan Xiu's side, they immediately looked shocked. This was because they knew about Gu Yanner's situation. Logically speaking, she should still be in a deep sleep, and it would probably take a few more years before she could wake up. How could she wake up now? "Master! Master!" The Light and Dark siblings and Qi Mei hurriedly saluted. "Look at your shocked faces. It's funny," said Gu Yanner with a smile. "You didn't expect me to wake up, did you?" Gu Xiaoxue excitedly ran to Gu Yanner's side. She pulled her arm and said with a trembling voice, "Master, we really didn't expect that you would wake up. That's great. Grand Master must have found a way to treat you." "That's right." Gu Yanner slightly smiled and said, "My internal injuries are basically healed, except for some special problems that haven't been solved yet. However, I won't fall into a coma again. I just need to cultivate every day, and I can completely remove the hidden dangers in my body after a few years." "Really?" Gu Xiaoxue was ecstatic, and the other 3 were also overjoyed. At the Everlasting Feast Hall. The news of Gu Yenner's reappearance was once again passed to the ears of every core disciple of the Everlasting Feast Hall. Furthermore, they also got the news that Gu Yenner would take charge of the Everlasting Feast Hall in the future. She would usually enter seclusion and occasionally come out to guide everyone in their cultivation. Shortly after, Tan Xiu accompanied Gu Yenner to have a meal and then stayed in the Everlasting Feast Hall. Although he had to attend classes at Shanghai University, he still wanted to accompany Gu Yenner. Only after a week did he bid farewell to Gu Yenner and return to Shanghai. For the rest of his life, everything remained the same. Aside from attending classes and teaching medical skills to Dai Xinyue, Tan Xiu spent the rest of his time either reading books or cultivating. His days were very pleasant. Until the New Year's Day, he went to Jingmen Island again and accompanied Gu Yenner for 2 days. The magnificent Tang Corporation's business was getting better and better, yet the supply of each product still couldn't meet the demand. Almost every time the products were on sale, they would be sold out. With the accumulation of funds, Kang Xia's time in Star City was getting less and less. Aside from setting up branches in various provincial capitals, she spent half of her time in Shanghai, negotiating the land purchase agreement with the government and contacting the construction company to build the magnificent Tang Corporation's new HQ as well as 2 large factories. New Year's Day was approaching. On the first day of Shanghai University's holiday, Tan Xiu received an unexpected call. "Excuse me, are you Tan Xiu, Grand Master?" A timid voice came out of the phone. Tan Xiu frowned and asked, "I'm Tan Xiu, and you are?" The other party's tone was obviously excited as he quickly replied, "I'm Chen Tong, Grand Master." Chen Tong. Tan Xiu stared blankly for a moment before he instantly realized that it was Chen Zhizhong's son. He had heard Chen Zhizhong mention Chen Tong's name before. He immediately let out a faint smile and asked, "Is there something you need from me?" Chen Tong quickly said, "Grand Master, my dad once said that you're a divine doctor. Can I ask you a favor? My classmate is suffering from a strange disease which is highly contagious. She's now quarantined in the Virus Research Institute in the imperial capital. Can you save her? If her strange disease is highly contagious, someone from the government should have intervened, right?" asked Tan Xiu. "What's their conclusion?" Tang Xiu asked. "There's no reply. I spent a lot of money to barely get some news. It said that the experts and professors at the National Virus Research Institute can't figure out how this new virus is formed. However, I heard that my classmate has been given a notice of critical illness. I'm afraid she won't be able to be saved if there's no solution." Tan Xiu pondered for a moment and then said, "All right. I'll rush to the imperial capital now and we'll talk about it in detail when I arrive. Also, I'll send you the flight number and arrival time after I've booked the ticket." "All right, thank you, Grand Master," Chen Tong said gratefully. After hanging up the phone, Tan Xiu called Yuan Chuling. The two of them originally agreed to return to Star City together, but he had to temporarily change his destination, so he couldn't accompany him. As a result, he heard that Tan Xiu wouldn't return to Star City for the time being, so Yuan Chuling also decided to stay. The fitness club he had tinkered with was almost finished. He originally planned to open it after the new year, but since he couldn't go back for the time being, he decided to open it before the new year. At noon, Tan Xiu walked out of the Shanghai airport and looked around. He saw a young man with dyed blonde hair and a white down jacket trotting over. He was holding 2 umbrellas because it was raining outside. "Chen Tong?" asked Tan Xiu. "I'm Chen Tong, Grand Master," said Chen Tong quickly. Why are you wearing so little? The temperature in the imperial capital is already below 0. Come, I'll give you my down jacket." After saying that, he was about to take off his down jacket and give it to Tan Xiu. Tan Xiu waved his hand to stop him. Although he was only wearing casual clothes, he didn't feel cold at all. With his current cultivation, he could easily adjust the temperature around him. With a smile, Tan Xiu said, "If I remember correctly, your father said that you're studying abroad. How did you come to the imperial capital? Our school's curriculum is very relaxed, and the vacation time is very early, said Qintong with a forced smile. 4 days ago, I went back to the imperial capital with my classmate. Her family lives in the imperial capital. We originally planned to have a good time for a few days and then go back to Star City. Who would have thought that she started to have a high fever on the flight back, and she was even more confused after arriving in the imperial capital. She was sent to the hospital and was diagnosed with a viral disease, so she needed to be immediately quarantined. I was supposed to be quarantined as well, but I took the opportunity to sneak away. That's right, Grand Master. Because of my classmate, all the passengers on the flight back were also quarantined. Even all the people we came in contact with after getting off the plane, including the doctors and nurses, were also quarantined. How many people are there? Asked Tan Xiu. More than 200 people, said Qintong. Also, more than half of them have started to have a high fever, the same symptoms as my classmate. Are you all right? Asked Tan Xiu with a frown. Speaking of which, it's quite strange. Qintong shook his head. Although my dad forced me to practice martial arts since I was a child and my physical fitness is very good, but the transmission of the infectious virus is through saliva and close contact through the air. I'm the closest person to her, and we even kissed, but I'm completely fine until now. Tan Xiu furrowed his brows and grabbed Qintong's wrist. After checking his pulse, he found that he indeed didn't have any symptoms of being infected with the virus. Huh? Tan Xiu sensed a trace of energy fluctuation from Qintong's body. When he quickly pulled the red string on Qintong's neck, he saw the amulet he had made before, which was worn by Qintong. Your dad really loves you. I gave him an amulet, and he actually gave you such an important amulet. Let's go. Take me to the Virus Research Institute. Qintong shuddered and hurriedly said, I can't go to that Virus Research Institute, Grand Master. You don't know, but many people are looking for me now, including the Public Security Bureau. In case they catch me, I'm sure they'll put me in quarantine. I heard that once you're quarantined and you can't find a cure, it's tantamount to being sentenced to death. Chapter 583. Tan Xiu could understand Qintong's fear. He recalled how many people were quarantined and died from the SARS virus during the SARS outbreak in 2002. As a matter of fact, the people in the country had a deep-rooted fear of infectious diseases, such as the plague that appeared in the past that killed many people every time. Qintong, you must have enough courage to be my grand disciple. Your father is a good man, and I don't think his son is a good-for-nothing either, right? Trust me, I guarantee that you'll be safe and sound. Qintong hesitated for a moment before he nodded and said, Since you said so, then I believe you, Grand Master. My car is parked outside. Let's go now. Tan Xiu nodded with satisfaction. Qintong might not be old and looked to be 1 or 2 years younger than him, but his courage was rare and commendable. Especially, his trust in him. The National Virus Research Institute was located in the remote southeast suburb of Shanghai. On the surface, it looked like a large chemical plant, but it was actually an extremely strict virus research center inside. There were plainclothes police officers patrolling 2 kilometers away, and the inside was even more tightly guarded. Zhang Lei, the security captain of the National Virus Research Institute, used to be an outstanding special forces soldier with high military attainments. After becoming a professional, he was assigned to this place to do the security work. Standing in front of the outermost gate post, Zhang Lei's eyes were filled with worry. Due to the emergence of a terrifying new virus and the widespread spread of it, the entire research institute was now filled with a depressing atmosphere. As for the container trucks that drove in from the outside, he knew that they were all infected with the virus or people who had close contact with the infected. Captain, there are foreign vehicles requesting to enter the institute. The voice of a security guard came from the communication device on Zhang Lei's waist. Zhang Lei said in a deep voice, check their IDs and detect if there are any dangerous items in their vehicles. Do a comprehensive check according to the previous inspection method. Remember, don't have too much contact with the people in the vehicles, and everyone must wear a gas mask. Understood. A reply came from the communication device. Zhang Lei sighed. He suddenly wanted to smoke. However, smoking was prohibited in the Virus Research Institute, at least within 2 kilometers of the outermost gate post. After pondering for a moment, he decided to go outside to see the situation and smoke to relieve his depressed mood. A few minutes later, when he drove the car to the first blockade line 2 kilometers away, the container truck had already been inspected and was allowed to drive inside. Captain. Dozens of security guards in black uniforms saluted Zhang Lei. After returning the greeting, Zhang Lei took out a cigarette from his pocket and lit it up. After taking 2 puffs, he threw the remaining pack of cigarettes to the rest and asked in a deep voice, "Is this the first car today?" "The 4th carriage." One of the security personnel replied. Zhang Lei sighed inwardly and bitterly smiled. "I'm afraid that the isolation room is running out. In total, more than 300 people have been escorted here, right?" The security guard nodded and said, "According to the recorded data, there should be 329 people. If the experts in the research institute could not develop a cure for the virus, the first patient would not be able to survive. In addition, when we were on duty inside, old Zhang, who was in charge of delivering meals, said that the number of patients who had started to have a high fever had increased to 62. Some of them are very serious." Zhang Lei didn't say anything else. Although he didn't want to encounter such a situation, he was just a security member. There was no way he could stop the tide. A white BMW 525 slowly stopped in front of everyone. Zhang Lei extinguished the cigarette in his hand and threw it into the trash can not far away. Then, he strode toward the white BMW 525. "Hello, comrade. Please show me your ID." The window opened and Qin Tong, who was in the driver's seat, said, "I'm Qin Tong, and I need to go in. Also, we don't have any ID." Zhang Lei stared blankly and suddenly recalled something. He quickly pulled out a pistol from his waist and aimed it at Qin Tong. At the same time, he quickly retreated 4 to 5 steps and shouted in a deep voice, "Get off and accept the inspection." Qin Tong turned to look at Tan Xiu, who was in the front passenger seat. Tan Xiu patted Qin Tong's shoulder. After getting off the car, he came to a place a few meters away from Zhang Lei and lightly said, "I'm Tan Xiu, a Chinese medicine practitioner with the qualification certificate. I need to check the situation in the Virus Research Institute. If it doesn't comply with the regulations, I hope you can contact the director of your research institute and report my matter to him." Zhang Lei was silent for a moment. Then, he took out his communicator and reported, "Director Wei, there's a young man named Tan Xiu. He said that he has the qualification certificate of a Chinese medicine practitioner and wants to enter the research institute. Additionally, the wanted man, Qin Tong, also came with him." Tan Xiu. A Chinese medicine practitioner. Where did he come from? Forget it. No matter who he is, he must undergo the inspection if he wants to enter the research institute. He came with Qin Tong. Maybe he's also infected. Detain them immediately and personally escort them inside. Director Wei's voice came out of the phone. Zhang Lei's expression changed. After he complied, he pointed his gun at Tan Xiu and said, "Comrade, please cooperate with us. The higher-ups have instructed us to inspect you and escort you inside." Tan Xiu squinted his eyes and a cold light flashed. Escort. The meaning of the word escort was completely different. He was not a suspect, but a doctor who came to help. Furthermore, he had also revealed his identity as a Chinese medicine practitioner, yet the other party was so rude, which made him very angry. Virum, during this stalemate, the roar of an engine came from afar. More than a dozen black SUVs were like runaway horses as they aggressively rushed to the front of the crowd. As the doors neatly opened, a young man who looked to be about 26 or 27 years old, with earrings on his ears, dyed hair, and a toothpick in his mouth, was the first to dash over. However, when he saw the scene in front of him, he immediately frowned and shouted, "Good dogs don't block the way. Get the hell out of the way. You bastard with a gun, do you know who this young master is? Get the hell out of here, or else I'll break your fucking legs." Zhang Lei's expression changed. He didn't bother to pay attention to the non-mainstream youth, but the more than 20 black-suited stalwart men in their 30s or 40s that he brought with him made him secretly vigilant. "Who are you? This is a private chemical plant, outsiders are forbidden to enter." The non-mainstream youth stepped forward and ridiculed, "Cut the crap. Don't think this young master doesn't know that this is the National Virus Research Institute. I, Zhao Yundi, have inquired about it before I came here. You're the one who captured my sister and detained her here. Get the hell out of here, or else I'll have someone break your fucking legs." Zhang Lei coldly looked at Zhao Yundi and immediately picked up the communicator, saying, "The outermost blockade line is being threatened by unidentified people. Members of the second and third teams are coming immediately." Zhao Yundi's expression changed as he angrily glared at Zhang Lei. He then turned around and shouted to a middle-aged stalwart man behind him, "Rush in. Beat anyone who dares to resist to death. If they dare to use their guns, don't just stand there and do nothing. You dare to capture my sister and say that she's a virus carrier. If I don't save her today, I'll change my surname to yours." Immediately, more than 20 stalwart men took out their pistols from their waists and quickly unlocked the safety bolt. That uniform movement and the cold aura caused the string in Zhang Lei's heart to tighten abruptly. He used to be a special forces soldier, so he could naturally feel the aura of a soldier from these people. After pondering for a moment, he picked up the communicator and dialed Director Wei's number. "Director Wei, there's a young man who claims to be Zhao Yundi outside. He's leading more than 20 armed men to break through the blockade line of our institute. I request for an armed security team." "Zhao Yundi? How did that living ancestor come here?" Director Wei immediately shouted after listening to Zhang Lei's words. A few seconds later, he said again, "Zhang Lei, don't act rashly. You just need to stop Zhao Yundi if he wants to break through the blockade line. Remember, don't use your guns. This little ancestor has a very strong background. I can't afford to provoke him. I must ask the higher-ups for instructions." "I got it." Although Zhang Lei was dissatisfied that Director Wei was afraid of a second-generation and third-generation expert, he still fulfilled his duty and called 2 groups of security team members. 30 to 40 people confronted Zhao Yundi. Tan Xiu sighed inwardly. He had heard Zhao Yundi's name from Tang Wei when he was chatting with him. This guy was a descendant of the Zhao family in the imperial capital, the grandson of the Zhao family's patriarch. He had an arrogant and despotic character and liked to stir up trouble. He had even provoked the descendants of the big families in the imperial capital, including the Tang family and the former Yao family. He had taken advantage of them and suffered great losses. It could be said that this guy was a living devil incarnate. Tan Xiu looked at the 2 groups of people confronting each other. He sighed inwardly and turned to walk away. Hey. Dude, you're not scared, are you? I just saw him pointing a gun at you. Are you afraid now? Are you going to run away?" Zhao Yundi immediately shouted when he saw Tan Xiu walking away. He might be a rich playboy, but he was not stupid. Bringing people and guns to attack the state's institutions today would definitely cause serious consequences. He would never do such a stupid thing if the one being detained was not his sister. However, if the guy who was pointed at by a gun had a bit of background, then he would have someone to share the crisis. Tan Xiu stopped and glanced at him. He then took out his mobile and dialed his aunt, Tang Min's number. After the call was connected, he took the lead and said, "Auntie, I'm outside the Imperial Capital's Virus Research Institute. Can I trouble you to contact the person in charge here? I need to go inside and check the situation of the patients with infectious diseases. Chapter 584. At this moment, Tang Min was on the way to the Tang family's ancestral residence because the old patriarch called and said that he had something for her to do. Although the old patriarch didn't say it on the phone, she could guess that the major families in the imperial capital had begun to divide the Yao family's wealth and compete for the lost positions of the Yao family. This time, the Tang family was the mastermind behind the destruction of the Yao family, so they were destined to get the most. However, Tang Min didn't expect that her nephew, Tan Xiu, would come to the imperial capital at this time and even went to the Virus Research Institute. She knew the director of the Virus Research Institute, Wei Shiqing. When Wei Shiqing was being suppressed, she took the initiative to help him. Otherwise, it would have been impossible for him to become the director of the Virus Research Institute. No problem. I'll immediately call the director of the Virus Research Institute, Wei Shiqing. Anyways, when did you come to the imperial capital, Xiu? Also, why did you come to the Virus Research Institute? There's a very serious infectious virus spreading recently. You're not coming for that, are you? Tang Min didn't take it seriously at first, but she suddenly realized that it was about the infectious virus and immediately tensed up. Auntie, I'm indeed here for that infectious virus, said Tan Xiu. I'll tell you the details after I'm done with my work. Xiu, Auntie knows that you have the title of the young divine doctor, but you mustn't take it lightly. That virus is not something to joke about. If you don't pay attention, you might. Bah. 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 Look at what I'm talking about. Xiu, can we discuss this? Don't poke your nose into other people's business. Our Tang family is now in the midst of a big harvest. I'm sure you can get more benefits if you come and help us, said Tang Min hurriedly on the phone. What benefits? Asked Tan Xiu with a strange expression. It's the Yao family. Tang Min said, the Yao family has almost withdrawn from the imperial capital. Many of the wealth they once had has been secretly snatched by the major families. The vacated positions of the Yao family's members are also the target of many families. Tang Xiu suddenly understood and said with a smile, Auntie, I'll leave those things to you. I don't understand politics. If it's a matter of fighting and killing, I can help. Hearing Tan Xiu's words, Tang Min hesitated. Xiu, are you really not willing to change your mind? Tan Xiu said, I can't change my mind. Among those patients, there are people I need to help. Who is it? Asked Tang Min quickly. Tan Xiu smiled and said, she's a friend of my grand disciple. I guess she should be his girlfriend. This is the first time I've met this grand disciple of mine, and it's the first time he's begging me. So, Auntie, please contact Superintendent Wei. We can't delay it for too long. Alright, wait for my news. After saying that, Tang Min hung up the phone. Zhao Yundi had been eavesdropping on Tan Xiu's phone call. When he heard that Tan Xiu was calling his aunt, he was secretly disappointed. However, when he heard that Tan Xiu's aunt could contact Director Wei, he was secretly surprised. After all, the position of the National Virus Research Institute was very special, and officials with a bit of power simply couldn't get in touch with it. Only the department that controlled the real core power of the country might be able to contact Wei Shiqing. His Zhao family could also directly contact Wei Shiqing, but he couldn't wait. He was afraid that his sister would die in this damn Virus Research Institute. What's your name, bro? Zhao Yundi saw Tan Xiu coming back and asked with his chin raised. Tan Xiu. Replied Tan Xiu with a faint smile. Zhao Yundi nodded and said, what's your aunt's job? Is she very capable? If she's not, then we might as well work together and break into it. At worst, I'll treat you as my brother. Tan Xiu couldn't help laughing and said, if I wanted to break into it, I would have done it long ago. These shrimp soldiers and crab generals can't stop me. Zhao Yundi rolled his eyes. If someone had boasted to him like this in the past, he would have slapped them in the face long ago. However, he wanted to rope in Tan Xiu now, so he endured his contempt and said, "Bro, we're real men, and we won't brag. If you have the guts and are a real man, then we'll break in." Tan Xiu ignored Zhao Yundi's provocation and looked at the frosty Zhang Lei instead, asking lightly, "How long will it take to get to Director Wei's office from here?" Zhang Lei didn't want to answer Tan Xiu, but he could hear some other meaning from Tan Xiu's words. He wanted to see Tan Xiu make a fool out of himself, so he replied indifferently, "It will take 12 minutes to run on foot, and 4.5 minutes to get to the office building by car." Tan Xiu nodded and looked at Zhao Yundi, saying, 5 minutes. "Give me 5 minutes. If the director of the Virus Research Institute doesn't appear in front of us in 5 minutes, I'll cooperate with you and we'll break in together. How about it?" Zhang Lei stared blankly. Although he didn't quite believe it, he still endured the irritation and nodded. At this moment, inside the Virus Research Institute's director's office, Wei Shiqing had just called the Zhao family's patriarch and told him about Zhao Yundi's disturbance. After getting the apology and assurance from the Zhao family's patriarch, his tense heart finally calmed down. However, before he could catch his breath, his cell phone rang. "Huh? This number?" Wei Shiqing seemed to recall something as he immediately picked up the call and said, "Is there anything you need from me, Minister Tang?" Tang Min's voice came out, "Director Wei, there's something I need to trouble you with. My nephew, Tan Xiu, is now outside your Virus Research Institute. He's a Chinese medicine practitioner from Star City Chinese Medical Hospital and is also known as the young divine doctor of the new generation. I hope you can let him in and diagnose the patient's condition. Perhaps, with his ability, he can find out the problem of the virus and solve the illness." Upon hearing the name Tan Xiu again, Wei Shiqing's complexion suddenly drastically changed. He just felt that the name Tan Xiu was somewhat familiar, but never once did he expect that Tan Xiu turned out to be the Tang family's Tan Xiu. He had learned a lot about the Yao family's situation, and the main credit for it was Tan Xiu. He also knew that Tan Xiu was the young divine doctor of Star City Chinese Medical Hospital, but he just didn't think about it. In a flash, he immediately nodded and said, "Please rest assured, Minister Tang. I'll immediately rush over and personally invite Mr. Tang in." "Thank you," said Tang Min. After Wei Shiqing hung up the phone, he didn't even bother to take his coat as he grabbed his mobile phone and hurriedly rushed outside. The reason why he could have his current status and become the director of the National Virus Research Institute was partly because of his deep academic achievements, and also partly because of Tang Min. His wife was Tang Min's classmate in junior high school. When he was suppressed by other bigwigs, it was his wife who asked Tang Min for help, allowing him to safely get through the calamity. Hence, Tang Min was his benefactor, and her authority was much higher than his. At the outermost blockade line of the Virus Research Institute, Zhao Yundi raised his wrist and looked at the time on his watch. 4 minutes had passed since the 5 minutes Tan Xiu said. There wasn't even a shadow of a ghost inside, which made him secretly despise him. "Buddy, it's almost time. There's only 1 minute left. I advise you not to be stubborn. Let's take advantage of the time not up and directly rush inside. No matter what the result is, we'll shoulder it together. What do you think?" As the saying goes, haste makes waste. Tan Xiu said indifferently, "Haste makes waste. There's only 1 minute left. If Director Wei hasn't come out by then, I'll definitely rush inside with you." I think you won't give up until you reach the Yellow River." Zhao Yundi snorted coldly. "Since you insist on waiting, then I really want to see if that surnamed Wei will." His words came to an abrupt halt halfway. With a flash of light, the off-road vehicle sped like the wind and stopped in front of everyone in just a few seconds. After Wei Shiqing hurriedly jumped down from the driver's seat, he glanced at the two groups of people confronting each other before his eyes finally fell on Tan Xiu. He remembered Tan Xiu's appearance, the most powerful and ruthless character of the Tang family in this generation. Furthermore, it was rumored that Tan Xiu had been wandering outside for 20 years and was only found by the Tang family this year. I'm really sorry, Mr. Tang. I didn't know it was you before, so I offended you. I hope you won't stoop to my level. Wei Shiqing's status was also very high, but at this moment, he put his position very low and spoke with an apologetic face. You're too polite, Director Wei. Tan Xiu let out a faint smile. I came here this time because I heard about the infectious disease. I hope I can help you. You're the young divine doctor of our country. I've long heard about your medical skills and moral character, said Wei Shiqing quickly. Now, all the experts in our institute are frowning and unable to study the source of the virus. I'm sure we can save a lot of people with your help. Although Zhao Yundi was shocked that Tan Xiu could make Wei Shiqing rush out in just 5 minutes with just a phone call, he immediately rolled his eyes and snorted after hearing the conversation between the two men. Hey, surnamed Wei, I didn't expect that a director like you would also flatter others. How old is this guy? Young divine doctor. What a joke. Tan Xiu looked at Zhao Yundi with a faint smile. Was this guy looking for a slap on his face? Sure enough. An angry look appeared on Wei Shiqing's face after hearing Zhao Yundi's words. Even though he was afraid of Zhao Yundi's identity, he still snapped, Zhao Yundi, I've called your grandpa. I think he'll send someone to take you back soon. How can you know Divine Dr. Tang's identity? Take these people you brought and leave quickly. Else, even the Zhao family won't be able to protect you if this matter blows up. Zhao Yundi was furious. He grabbed a pistol and pointed it at Wei Shiqing as he angrily shouted, surnamed Wei, don't be so shameless. I must take my sister back today, else I'll tear down your virus research institute. It's the end of the month, please give me a monthly ticket. Chapter 585. Wei Shiqing wasn't afraid of Zhao Yundi at all. Even if a gun was pointed at him, he still straightened his chest and fiercely shouted, Zhao Yundi, I know you're very arrogant and arrogant. You're one of the best playboys in the entire imperial capital. But you better think clearly about the consequences of openly attacking the country's important institutions. The Zhao family is very strong, but the entire Zhao family can't be suppressed by the country just because of you. Put down the gun and leave with your men. Zhao Yundi quickly opened the safety bolt and pulled the trigger. Bang! A gunshot was heard and the bullet was shot out from the black muzzle. The muzzle was aimed at Wei Shiqing's head. Standing at the side, Tan Xiu instantly furrowed his brows. He waved his arm and pinched the bullet with his right index and middle finger, preventing Wei Shiqing from dying. If it was before, Tan Xiu didn't like Zhao Yundi's playboy style, then he was now disgusted. Tan Xiu despised Zhao Yundi's action of relying on his family's power to kill people. If Zhao Yundi was very capable and didn't need to rely on his family's protection, then he would have killed him. But what he was doing now was bringing disaster upon himself and bringing disaster upon his family. Idiot! A cold curse came out of Tan Xiu's mouth. The bullet that Zhao Yundi expected didn't appear. His eyes fell on the bullet between Tan Xiu's fingers. Disbelief instantly burst out from his eyes. How could anyone in real life be able to catch a bullet between their fingers in a movie? Could it be, am I dreaming? Wei Shiqing was also dumbfounded. He never thought that Zhao Yundi would really dare to shoot. Looking at the bullet between Tan Xiu's fingers, his throat felt dry and his throat squirmed a few times. Zhang Lei, who was at the side, had already aimed his gun at Zhao Yundi the moment he fired. If it wasn't for Tan Xiu blocking Zhao Yundi, he would have shot Zhao Yundi dead. What happened? Why didn't the bullet hit Director Wei? Zhao Yundi's gun was fake. Zhang Lei took 2 steps to the side. When his eyes fell on the gap between Tan Xiu's fingers, his heart raced and his eyes were filled with shock. Catching a bullet with his bare hands? Was he hallucinating? Or was he dreaming? At this time, apart from them, the others were also shocked by Tan Xiu's action of catching the bullet with one hand. They were in disbelief. Some people even raised their arms and rubbed their eyes, trying to confirm if they were seeing things. In the end, everyone realized that their eyes weren't playing tricks on them. This scene was real. After cursing, Tan Xiu put away the bullets and snatched the pistol from Zhao Yundi's hand. He then coldly snorted and said, "Humph, the great silk pants of the imperial capital turns out to be a fool who only knows how to show off his bravery. If it weren't for the Zhao family protecting you, who knows how many times you would have died. If you want to play, don't look for trouble with others. I'll play with you. I don't believe that your Zhao family is stronger than the Yao family." Zhao Yundi was dumbfounded. Never in his wildest dreams did he expect that Tan Xiu would directly point the spearhead at him. He still hadn't figured out Tan Xiu's identity. But when he recalled that Zhang Lei was able to point a gun at Tan Xiu when he first came here, he immediately flew into a rage. As for the fact that Tan Xiu could call the director of the Virus Research Institute, he thought that Tan Xiu had a good aunt. "Bastard, you motherfucker, Pa!" Tan Xiu slapped his face. Just when more than 20 stalwart men were about to pounce on him, Zhang Lei led the security team to step forward. The situation was still in a deadlock. "You, Pa, Tan Xiu slapped Zhao Yundi's face again. Pa. Every time Zhao Yundi opened his mouth, the number of Tan Xiu's slaps would increase. As the slaps continued, Zhao Yundi desperately wanted to fight back, but he was constantly slapped by Tan Xiu. Finally, after Tan Xiu had slapped him more than 10 times, Zhao Yundi was so angry that he almost lost his mind. He wanted to order his men to take action. But unfortunately, before he could say anything, the raindrop-like slap still fell on his face. Bam! Zhao Yundi slumped on the ground. He was really stunned by Tan Xiu's slaps. He didn't dare to speak again and could only stare at Tan Xiu with murderous eyes, wishing that he could peel off Tan Xiu's tendons and burn his bones to ashes. Tan Xiu deliberately swung his palm and sneered, "Actually, I don't want to slap you, but your Zhao family and my Tang family have a good relationship. I can save you this time, but I can't save you a second time. If you still don't know when to stop, I don't mind killing you myself, lest you bring disaster to the Zhao family." After saying that, he then looked at Wei Shiqing and said, "Director Wei, saving people is like fighting a fire. He's just a spoiled child, so I hope you won't stoop to his level. That bullet just now is the price you have to pay for forgiving the former enmity. How about it?" Wei Shiqing stared at Tan Xiu in a daze. After being silent for a long while, he secretly sighed and said, "It's reasonable to say that I should pursue this matter. After all, he wanted to shoot me. But for your sake, I'll let this matter go. However, if he dares to make trouble again, I'll drag him to meet the King of Hell with me even if I have to risk my life." Tang Xiu nodded in response. He then kicked Zhao Yundi and angrily shouted, "What the hell are you still doing here? Get the hell out of here." Zhao Yundi was afraid that Tan Xiu would hit him again, but he recalled his purpose of coming here. He braced himself and shouted, "I'm not leaving. My sister is still inside. She's infected and I can't watch her die here. Kill me if you have the ability." Tan Xiu was silent for a moment. Then, he suddenly looked at the people brought by Zhao Yundi and said in a deep voice, "I don't care who you are. Put away your weapons and get the hell out of here if you don't want to cause trouble for Zhao Yundi. Humph, he's just an ignorant brat, but you're not. You should know how serious the consequences will be from your actions today." More than 20 stalwart men looked at each other in dismay. How could they not know the seriousness of what they did today? But they must obey Zhao Yundi's order, so they could only bite the bullet and follow him. For a moment, they all looked at Zhao Yundi, waiting for his decision. Zhao Yundi's expression was cloudy and uncertain. He hesitated for more than half a minute before getting up from the ground. He then waved his hand and said, "All of you go back. Quickly. More than 20 stalwart men left one after another. Zhao Yundi looked at Tan Xiu. Although his face was still full of anger, he forcibly suppressed it and shouted, "I've already told them to leave. I must go inside and take my sister away today. If she can't go with me, I'll stay here and won't go." Tan Xiu was too lazy to pay attention to him. He turned to look at Wei Shiqing and said, "Let's go inside. Saving people is more important." Wei Shiqing quickly nodded and quickly entered the research institute with Tan Xiu and Qin Tong, whose face was full of awe. 7 or 8 minutes later, they appeared in the isolation area of the research institute. Divine Dr. Tang, according to the investigation of the intelligence department, there are a total of 329 people who have had intimate contact with the infected. More than 60 of them have shown symptoms of high fever, and it has been confirmed that they are infected. The state has transferred a large number of elite experts from all over the country. Unfortunately, the source of the virus and how to treat the infected have not been figured out yet. Wei Shiqing gave a brief description of the situation here. "What's the name of your classmate?" Tan Xiu looked at Qin Tong and asked. "Yu Tingting," answered Qin Tong quickly. "Take me to see the girl named Xiao Tingting." Tan Xiu said to Wei Shiqing. "She's the first carrier of the virus. Maybe the key lies in her." "I'll go too." Zhao Yundi immediately shouted. "What are you going to do?" Tan Xiu frowned and coldly snorted. "Just wait outside for me." Zhao Yundi shouted, "Xiao Tingting is my big sister. I naturally have to go with her." His words made Tan Xiu stare blankly, whereas Qin Tong's face was full of disbelief. He and Xiao Tingting were classmates. Both of them were students of the same university abroad, and they were in love with each other. However, their relationship had yet to be 100% confirmed. This time, he followed Xiao Tingting to the imperial capital, on the one hand, to have fun, and on the other hand, to meet her family. He rarely heard Xiao Tingting mention her family, so he thought that she only grew up in a relatively wealthy family. Never did he expect that she turned out to be a member of the Zhao family in the imperial capital. "I don't care who Xiao Tingting is to you," said Tan Xiu indifferently. "She's now a carrier of the virus. No one can go inside except me. So, obediently wait outside for me." "You," Zhao Yundi looked angry. Tan Xiu waved his hand, scaring Zhao Yundi into shrinking his head and retreating a few steps. 2 minutes later, Tan Xiu passed through several iron doors and followed a staff member in a protective suit into the corridor. Through the transparent glass window, he saw that there were 2 people detained in each room. These people's faces were full of chagrin and despair. In the innermost isolation room, the beautiful Xiao Tingting was hugging her knees and leaning on the bed in the corner. Her face was abnormally flushed, and her lips were a bit purple. She slightly furrowed her brows and was in a daze. Clang! The door of the isolation room was opened. After Tan Xiu entered, the staff member in a protective suit closed the door from the outside. "You," Xiao Tingting slowly raised her head with a surprised look in her eyes. "You're Xiao Tingting? Qin Tong's classmate?" Tan Xiu lightly smiled. "You're Xiao Tingting? Qin Tong's classmate?" Zhao Tingting nodded and suddenly realized something. She abruptly got up from the bed and stood in the corner, shouting, "Don't come over." "Who let you in?" I have a virus on me. Get out quickly. You have a good character. You can't even guarantee your own safety, yet you still care about others. You're very good. You're barely qualified to be my grand disciple's wife." Tan Xiu praised. Chapter 586. Tan Xiu walked to the bed in the corner and looked at Xiao Tingting's dull expression. Then, he said, "I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Qin Tong's Grand Master. If my guess is correct, you should be his girlfriend. Else, it's impossible for him to take such a great risk and stay in the imperial capital, let alone take the initiative to contact me and ask for help. An incredulous look appeared on Zhao Tingting's face as she murmured, "I know that Qin Tong has a grand master who is his father's master. But you? Do you want to say that I'm very young?" Tan Xiu said with a smile. Zhao Tingting nodded without hesitation. "In many fields, there is a saying that, the one who achieves is the master," said Tan Xiu. "I'm quite good in a certain field, so my apprentice is a bit older, so it should be considered as a matter of sorting it out." Zhao Tingting suddenly understood. She curiously looked at Tan Xiu and asked, "Then which field are you good in?" "Martial arts?" "I'm very good in many fields, such as Chinese medicine," Tan Xiu said with a faint smile. "Since I can come here, it should show that my identity as a Chinese medicine practitioner is recognized by many people. Well, you don't have to worry about me being infected by you. I wouldn't have come here dressed like this if I didn't have enough confidence." Zhao Tingting hesitated for a moment before she finally got off the bed. However, her current physical condition was very weak and she almost fell to the ground. Tan Xiu's eyes and hands were quick. After supporting her, he let her sit on the edge of the bed and reached out to check her pulse. "Huh?" Tan Xiu used his spiritual sense to check and found that there was a dark green gas in Zhao Tingting's kidney. This gas was fusing with the nearest blood vessels at a very slow speed and went through the whole body along with the blood, exuding a special smell. Ordinary people couldn't smell this smell, but Tan Xiu had a keen sense of smell and smelled it when he approached her. Furthermore, her pulse was a bit abnormal. It wasn't weak like a patient with a fever, but it was stronger than an ordinary person's pulse, even several times stronger. "Can you bear the pain?" "It's very painful." "That kind of pain is hard for ordinary people to bear." Tan Xiu let go of Zhao Tingting and asked. Zhao Tingting hesitated for a moment before saying in a low voice, "I've been afraid of pain since I was young, but if the virus in my body can be cured, I can endure any pain. I don't have 100% assurance." Tan Xiu nodded and said, "After all, there are toxins in your blood vessels now. But I can guarantee that I can protect your life." Hearing this, Zhao Tingting nodded without hesitation and said, "Then do it." As soon as Tan Xiu turned his hand, a silver needle appeared in his hand, and he pierced it into Zhao Tingting's Tanzhong acupoint without hesitation. Immediately, Tan Xiu grabbed Zhao Tingting's wrist with both of his hands. As his thumb pressed on her pulse, 2 streams of chaotic force flowed into her body. "Ah!" A heart-wrenching scream came from Zhao Tingting's mouth. She felt as if there were 2 sharp knives in her arms, constantly stabbing towards her shoulders. The speed was fast, and the pain was intense. If she hadn't prepared herself, she would have fainted from the pain at the beginning. Tan Xiu looked at her deeply and immediately restrained his mind. He concentrated on controlling the 2 streams of chaotic force to break through the thistles and thorns and rushed into Zhao Tingting's kidney in a very short time. Furthermore, he used his chaotic force to wrap the dark green gas in an extremely domineering manner. "Come out." As the silver needle was flicked out of Zhao Tingting's Tanzhong acupoint, a pungent fishy smell sprayed out from inside. It took half a minute for the controlled dark green gas to be completely sprayed out. "Brace yourself. I'm afraid you won't be able to wake up if you pass out now." Tan Xiu's fingers pressed on Zhao Tingting's head. As the 2 streams of chaotic force in her body fused into one, it then spread out in all directions. It was as if mercury was spreading out in all directions. In just a few seconds, it had spread all over Zhao Tingting's body. Ah! The pain that seemed to come from her soul made Zhao Tingting feel like she was better off dead than alive. She had never tasted such pain in her life. She, who had acute appendicitis before, felt that this pain was at least 10 times worse than the pain she had felt in the past. Her body was trembling, and her face was devoid of blood. As she squeezed out a scream from her throat, the chaotic force seemed to spread out like a net, gathering all the impurities in Zhao Tingting's body, including the green poison that had integrated into her blood. In the end, it formed a grayish-black substance the size of a sesame seed. Smack! Tan Xiu slapped Zhao Tingting's back. She, who had almost fainted from the pain, opened her mouth and spat out the grayish-black substance. A light flashed in Tan Xiu's eyes. As the chaotic force wrapped the dark green gas that had just been sprayed out, it quietly floated in front of him. He couldn't care less about Zhao Tingting, who had collapsed on the bed, and sniffed it. Then, he used a silver needle to pick out a trace of the grayish-black substance. He gently twisted it in his hand, and finally showed a hint of anger. Poison. It was injected into Zhao Tingting's body by someone. Moreover, this poison was mixed with many substances, and he couldn't distinguish most of them. But one thing he was sure of was that it contained the bile of a highly venomous snake. Rest for a few minutes and then answer some questions for me. Tan Xiu took out 2 porcelain bottles and poured the dark green gas and the grayish-black substance into them. He then closed the lid and put them away, and then looked at Zhao Tingting and said. It was just a little more than a minute, but Zhao Tingting felt like she had suffered countless centuries of pain in hell. She almost couldn't hold it anymore and almost fainted from the pain. Only then did she feel that the fierce pain had mostly disappeared. A few minutes later, as the pain receded like a tide, Zhao Tingting, who seemed to be a lot more relaxed, struggled to sit up with her arms propping herself up. Have you rested enough? Asked Tan Xiu. Zhao Tingting's complexion was still a bit pale, and her spirit was a bit sluggish. But there was a look of disbelief in her eyes as she murmured, "It's really unbelievable. I feel that my body seems to be better than when I wasn't sick. My whole body feels relaxed, warm, and very comfortable." "It's a blessing in disguise for you," said Tan Xiu with a faint smile. "I helped you recuperate your body while removing the toxins from your body. The process is very painful, but it will be very beneficial to you later. However, your body is still very weak for the time being, so you need to recuperate. The toxins in my body have been removed." Zhao Tingting was pleasantly surprised. "Then I'm fine now, am I?" "That's right. You're fine now." Tan Xiu nodded. But, Zhao Tingting's heart thumped and she quickly asked, "But what?" "You must treat a gynecological disease," said Tan Xiu. "Ah," Zhao Tingting exclaimed, and a trace of blush appeared on her pale face. She did have a gynecological disease, and it was just found out some time ago. It was a gynecological disease that was difficult for many young girls in their prime to talk about, yet Tan Xiu was able to see through it, making her feel embarrassed and shy. "Don't think too much about it," said Tan Xiu with a faint smile. "I have something important to ask you now, so you must answer me honestly. It's related to the reason why there is a huge amount of toxins in your body." Zhao Tingting's expression slightly changed. She immediately put away her embarrassment and nodded seriously. "Please ask." "I want to know if you encountered anything special before you came back from abroad," said Tan Xiu. "It's because the toxins in your body were injected by someone. Moreover, the location of the injection is very special, right in the kidney." "Injected?" Zhao Tingting stared blankly and suddenly exclaimed, "I remember it. Before I returned to China, I had a gynecological disease, so I went to a hospital for treatment and was injected with a drug to treat gynecological diseases. Could it be that the toxins in my body are because..." Tan Xiu furrowed his brows and asked in a deep voice, "You mean, there's something wrong with that hospital? Or is there something wrong with that doctor?" "I don't know." Zhao Tingting shook her head. Tan Xiu thought for a while and said, "I've expelled the toxins from your body, but you can't leave this place for the time being. I'll treat other patients later, so you'll stay here and wait. Also, your situation is very special, so I need to report it to a special agency in the country. Someone should contact you and investigate this matter clearly. You must cooperate with them when the time comes." "I'll cooperate with them." Zhao Tingting nodded seriously. Tan Xiu replied and came to the door to knock. The door was immediately opened from the outside. At this time, there was not only the staff in protective clothing outside the door, but also Wei Shiqing in protective clothing. "How is it, Divine Dr. Tang?" Wei Shiqing immediately asked nervously upon seeing Tan Xiu come out. I've expelled the toxins from Zhao Tingting's body. Tan Xiu nodded. It's a very special toxin with strong transmission power. It's mainly transmitted through blood, followed by saliva, and breathing. However, you don't need to worry too much. The possibility of the infected person infecting others is very small since the amount of toxins is very low. Director Wei, I have 2 porcelain bottles here that contain the toxins and poisonous gas. Give them to the researchers in the research institute. It's best to find more experts to study it together. I still have to treat the other infected people. Wei Shiqing was stunned by Tan Xiu's words. Experts from the research institute, as well as experts and professors from the medical field, had come to the research institute in the past 2 days and were still studying in the lab. He didn't expect that Tan Xiu would cure the first source of infection not long after he came here. Moreover, he even got the samples of the toxins and poisonous gas. Alright. Thank you for your hard work, Divine Dr. Tang. I'll immediately send these 2 bottles to the research institute, said Wei Shiqing in a hurry. Following Wei Shiqing's departure, Tan Xiu didn't rush to treat the other infected people. Instead, he took out his mobile phone and called Lu Changxi from the special department. He told him about what happened in the research institute, as well as his conjecture, and then gave him the problem that needed to be investigated. Chapter 587. The Zhao family of the imperial capital was famous throughout the country. Their family was very weak in the military, but they had countless pillars in the political world. There were at least 2 officials from the Zhao family in each province, and the number of second-in-command and third-in-command could be doubled. Therefore, the Zhao family's power was really sufficient. Zhao Qingfeng was the second son of the Zhao family's patriarch, and he was now working in an important department in the imperial capital. Zhao Qingfeng was simply dumbfounded when he received a call from his family's old man. Although he knew that his precious son was extremely bold and liked to stir up trouble, he never thought that he would poke such a big hole. He knew what kind of place the National Virus Research Institute was. It was definitely a very important special institution of the country. If it was placed in the army, it would be equivalent to a weapons research base. On the national highway more than 10 kilometers away from the Virus Research Institute, 2 Audi cars sped toward the direction of the Virus Research Institute. In the back seat of the second car, Zhao Qingfeng's complexion was ashen, and his eyes flickered with flames of anger. A jade that was not polished was not a tool. Zhao Qingfeng felt that his previous indulgence of his son was simply like cultivating him into a ticking time bomb. Even if this incident could be settled by paying some price, it was unknown when it would cause trouble in the future. Ring, 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 his phone rang. Zhao Qingfeng quickly picked up the phone. When he heard the words coming from the other side, his ashen complexion suddenly changed, and his eyes burst with disbelief. Shot? Shot at the director of the Virus Research Institute, Wei Shiqing. In an instant, despair rose in Zhao Qingfeng's heart. He was very clear about the consequences of shooting Wei Shiqing. His son was probably doomed this time. I order you to take down Zhao Yundi's gun, and then bring him back for me. Immediately. Zhao Qingfeng took a deep breath and shouted with a sharp tone. We have already left the Virus Research Institute. Zhao Yundi followed Tan Xiu and Wei Shiqing inside. Even if we go back now, we can't enter the Virus Research Institute. The voice from the phone came again. What? Zhao Qingfeng was stunned. He was confused by the other party's words. Since his son shot at Wei Shiqing, then even if Wei Shiqing didn't die, he would probably be injured, right? How? A few minutes later, the mystery in Zhao Qingfeng's heart was finally solved. The matter of Tan Xiu violently beating his son didn't make Zhao Qingfeng angry. Instead, a feeling of joy and gratitude rose from the bottom of his heart. Beating people was also saving people. Tan Xiu made his son pay the price of being slapped in order to take the blame for his son's misfortune. Zhao Qingfeng couldn't help but feel grateful. Zhao Qingfeng's identity was special, so he was allowed to go through the inspection outside the Virus Research Institute. When the car drove all the way to the square outside the quarantine zone, Zhao Qingfeng swiftly and violently pushed open the car door and rushed toward Zhao Yundi. Even though Zhao Yundi's face was red and swollen from Tan Xiu's beating, Zhao Qingfeng didn't feel the slightest bit of heartache. Instead, his anger burned even more fiercely. Pa pa pa! After slapping Zhao Yundi a dozen times in a row, Zhao Qingfeng seemed to have vented his anger and stopped. After pushing Zhao Yundi down, he looked down at him and angrily cursed, "Had I known that I would give birth to such a bastard son like you, I would have aborted you when you were still in your mother's womb. The Zhao family's face has been completely lost by you. I wish I could find a piece of cloth to cover my face. Idiot, do you have a pig's brain or a sheep's?" Zhao Yundi was beaten silly. Never in his wildest dreams did he expect that after his father arrived, he would madly slap him without saying anything, and then roar and reprimand him afterward. Being slapped by Tan Xiu had already made him angry and wronged. Now that his father came and gave him another round of slaps, it made him so angry that he simply lost his reason. After crawling up from the ground, he roared, "What right do you have to hit me? What qualifications do you have to hit me? Just because you're my dad? Just because you think I'm a disgrace to the Zhao family? Have you ever asked me the reason? Have you ever thought about my original intention? Who the fuck am I doing this for? For my big sister, for your daughter, your biological daughter." Zhao Qingfeng clenched his fists tightly. Even though he felt a bit uncomfortable inside and felt distressed to see his son being beaten like this, he still hardened his heart and shouted at the several guards he brought, "Beat him. Beat him ruthlessly. I don't think he'll realize his mistake if he doesn't teach him a profound lesson. What are you still staring blankly for? Beat him." The several guards looked at each other in dismay. After hearing Zhao Qingfeng's cold order, they finally gave Zhao Yundi a fat beating with a bit of helplessness. Of course, they were all experts in martial arts. Even though Zhao Yundi's whole body was in pain, they didn't hurt his muscles and bones. "Tell me, have you realized your mistake yet?" Zhao Qingfeng angrily shouted. Zhao Yundi twisted his neck and roared, "No. I didn't do anything wrong." Bim! Zhao Qingfeng kicked Zhao Yundi and shouted again, "Keep beating him. I'll admit it even if you beat him to death. If we keep this scourge alive, sooner or later, it will bring calamity to the Zhao clan and bring about great trouble." After another round of beatings, Zhao Qingfeng shouted in a deep voice, "What about now? Have you not realized your mistake yet?" "No." Zhao Yundi gritted his teeth in pain. Zhao Qingfeng gave him a thumbs up and praised, "You've got guts. Beating you doesn't have any effect, does it? Then have a taste of what I'm about to do next. Take him back to the family and punish him with the Zhao family's rules first. Then throw him into a dark room and imprison him. You won't admit your mistake. If you don't admit your mistake, then die in this dark room." Zhao Yundi's pupils violently shrunk as fear burst out from his eyes. The Zhao family's dark room was actually built according to the military's secret confinement room. Even the narrowness of the space was even worse than the military's confinement room. He had been imprisoned in this small dark room countless times, but the time inside was at most 1 day. Of course. That kind of 1-day punishment was enough to fill him with despair. In his opinion, this kind of dark room was definitely not a place for people to stay. He could barely accept it for a few hours, but 1 day was almost the limit. He felt that he would definitely collapse if he were to be locked inside for 3 to 5 days. He might even commit suicide inside. "No, I admit. I admit my mistake. But even though I'm very reckless, it's all for my big sister. You, as a father, don't care about it. If I don't, my big sister will die here." Zhao Qingfeng sighed inwardly. He was even more disappointed with his son. Given his character, how could he not care about his biological daughter? In fact, he had already called Zhao Shiqing and got Zhao Shiqing's assurance that he would do his best to treat his daughter. But now, after this good-for-nothing son of his made such a scene, he didn't even have the thought of seeing Zhao Shiqing. He was afraid that he would be embarrassed and ashamed, and then he would want to find a hole to bury himself in. It was said that a father hoped for his son to become a dragon. But now, he didn't have this thought at all. He only hoped that his son wouldn't turn into a worm. Zhao Qingfeng waved his hand at the guards and looked at Qin Tong at the side. He hesitated for a moment and asked, "Young man, you are?" Qin Tong was a bit nervous at the moment. Ever since he knew that Zhao Yindi was Zhao Tingting's younger brother, he really wanted to get closer to Zhao Yindi. Now that Zhao Qingfeng had arrived, it made him even more nervous. He even had the feeling of an ugly daughter-in-law meeting her in-laws. "Hello, uncle. I'm Qin Tong. Tan Xiu is my grand master." Zhao Qingfeng stared blankly for a moment before a stunned look appeared in his eyes. He never expected that Tan Xiu actually had a grand disciple. After hesitating for a moment, he curiously asked, "Then, your father is?" "My father is Qin Zhizhong, and the Endless Virtue Pharmaceutical is our family's business," said Qin Tong honestly. Zhao Qingfeng suddenly understood. He knew a lot of things about Tan Xiu, so he naturally knew that Tan Xiu had several apprentices, and Qin Zhizhong of the Endless Virtue Pharmaceutical was one of them. After nodding, he carefully observed Qin Tong and asked again, "You're here. Are you here with Tan Xiu?" "Actually, I invited Grand Master here. I and your daughter, Zhao Tingting, are foreign classmates, and also," said Qin Tong. "Also?" Zhao Qingfeng stared blankly for a moment as a surprised expression appeared on his face. He then asked, "Also what? You and my daughter are dating?" Qin Tong was a bit embarrassed, but he still nodded and said, "Uncle Zhao, I actually like Zhao Tingting very much. We just came back from abroad this time and were about to visit you and Auntie. But I didn't expect that we would encounter such a thing." Zhao Qingfeng instantly understood. No wonder his daughter called him before she came back and said that she wanted to give them a surprise. It turned out that she wanted to bring her boyfriend back. He didn't dislike Qin Tong and was even quite satisfied with him. Although his Zhao family had a big business, the Qin family wasn't bad either. Qin Zhizhong's Endless Virtue Pharmaceutical was the leading pharmaceutical company in the country. Furthermore, this Qin Tong chose to stay by his daughter's side when she was in danger. He even invited his Grand Master, Tan Xiu, to the imperial capital, which showed that he really cared about his daughter. Zhao Qingfeng was silent for a moment. He then patted Qin Tong's shoulder and sighed, "If Tingting can safely get through this tribulation, then let her take you home as a guest." Qin Tong stared blankly for a moment before a pleasantly surprised expression appeared on his face. He was very smart and naturally realized from Zhao Qingfeng's words that his future father-in-law had accepted him. "Thank you, Uncle Zhao. I believe Tingting will be fine." Zhao Qingfeng nodded. He didn't leave but waited outside. Firstly, he needed to figure out the specific situation of his daughter. Secondly, he also needed to apologize to Wei Shiqing. Of course, he also needed to thank Tan Xiu. 2 hours later. Accompanied by the staff, Tang Xiu came out from the door of the isolation area. Almost at the same time, Wei Shiqing also rushed over. He apologized and expressed his thanks. Zhao Qingfeng was very responsible, and his attitude was also very sincere. After obtaining Wei Shiqing's forgiveness, he inquired, "Tan Xiu, how's my daughter's situation now?" "Don't worry," Tan Xiu said with a faint smile. "She's fine now. But she still needs to stay here for 2 days for further observation. If there's no unexpected change in her body after 2 days, then she can leave. Today, I'll send you 3 chapters first. She's currently ranked 85th on the monthly votes list. Every time the monthly votes rank moves up, you'll get 1 more chapter. There's no upper limit to the eruption. Brothers and sisters, work hard to smash the votes _. Chapter 588. Zhao Qingfeng stared blankly with a bit of shock in his eyes. It was because his daughter was the first patient of this infectious disease, so he personally visited several medical professors from major hospitals in the imperial capital and recommended them to come here to help. Just a few hours ago, he had also called those medical professors and learned that they were at their wits' end about this infectious disease and didn't have much progress. How could it be cured all of a sudden? Although Wei Shiqing said that he had forgiven Zhao Yundi, he still couldn't completely let it go. Looking at Zhao Qingfeng's shocked expression, he indifferently said, "Mr. Tang is hailed as a divine doctor in the country, so he naturally has the ability to cure the disease." Zhao Qingfeng immediately felt deep veneration. He had heard that Tan Xiu's medical skills were superb, and this time, it could be said that he had learned something new. The infectious disease that those medical professors and experts were at their wits' end was unexpectedly easily solved by Tan Xiu. This ability was simply too great. Tan Xiu, I can't thank you enough for your great kindness. If you ever need my help in the future, please don't hesitate to ask. Even Zhao Qingfeng, who rarely made promises, spoke with a serious expression at this moment. Since I have the identity of a doctor, I must do the work of a doctor, Tan Xiu said with a faint smile. What's more, this grand disciple of mine has a deep relationship with Miss Xiao. Since I have this ability, I'll naturally go all out. Zhao Qingfeng looked at his son, who was beaten to the point that he was almost unrecognizable, and felt a bit bitter inside. Tan Xiu was a few years younger than his good-for-nothing son, but not only did he have a very strong career capital, his personal ability was even more formidable. If the two of them were compared, if Tan Xiu was a golden dragon soaring in the clouds and riding the mist, then his son could only be regarded as a loach in a mud pit. The difference is like heaven and earth. Zhao Qingfeng secretly sighed and said, Tan Xiu, I still have other things to deal with, so I won't stay here any longer. Come to my house some other day and we'll have a few cups of wine. I'll definitely visit Uncle Zhao if I have time, Tan Xiu nodded with a smile. Zhao Qingfeng left with Zhao Yundi, who had a complicated look in his eyes. Although Tang Xiu had beaten Zhao Yundi miserably, Tang Xiu had, after all, saved his sister, and there was no way to change this favor. Wei Shiqing retracted his gaze from the two leaving cars and turned to look at Tan Xiu, speaking with admiration, I've arranged everything, divine Dr. Tang. Those medical experts and professors want to see you. They sincerely admire what you've done. I won't see them. Tan Xiu shook his head. After all, they should be Western medicine practitioners, but I'm a traditional Chinese medicine practitioner. East and West were two different words, so the meaning was completely different. Director Wei, my aunt is looking for me for something else, so I'll go back first. Wei Shiqing nodded and suddenly said, Divine Dr. Tang, can you let Qintong stay here first? Tan Xiu was taken aback and immediately looked at Qintong. After thinking for a moment, Qintong nodded and said, Grand Master, since Director Wei is still worried, then I'll stay. But I want to stay with Xiao Tingting. Wei Shiqing looked a bit embarrassed as his thoughts were exposed. Upon hearing Qintong's request, he immediately said, no problem. Xiao Tingting has a room to herself. If you stay, I'll arrange the two of you to stay in the same room. Seeing that Qintong had made his decision, Tan Xiu didn't say anything more. After driving Qintong's car and leaving the Virus Research Institute, he directly drove to the Tang family's ancestral residence. To his surprise, his grandfather, Tang Guosheng, who rarely went out, unexpectedly went out today. Even his grandmother didn't know what he was going to do. Tan Xiu accompanied his grandmother to have a meal in the ancestral residence and then contacted Tang Wei. After learning that he was talking with his friends outside, Tan Xiu didn't disturb him and went out to stroll around. He didn't know. What happened today was spreading at an extremely fast speed. Whether it was the elders of those big families or the silk pants circle in the imperial capital, everyone applauded Tan Xiu's actions today. At the Conti Club. The top clubs in the imperial capital were of such a high level that even the children of billionaires would find it extremely difficult to step into the threshold. There were less than 200 members in the club, and each of their words carried a lot of power. In the open-air swimming pool, the hot water was bubbling with white smoke. Two young men in swimsuits were surrounded by a group of beautiful bikini-clad girls, drinking red wine, smoking cigars, and enjoying shoulder massages from the bikini-clad girls. Tang Wei, please consider my proposal. This is a profitable business with little capital. You won't get another chance like this, said Qin Xiaoyang with squinted eyes with a comfortable expression. Tang Wei's expression was a bit solemn. Although he was surrounded by women, he didn't have much mood to enjoy it. To put it bluntly, Qin Xiaoyang wanted to make use of the Tang family's resources. The Yao family's downfall and the Tang family's strength finally made all the families realize that although the Tang family had been regressing all these years, they had unknowingly accumulated a strong force. Even if they hadn't recovered to their peak, they could still be ranked in the top 5 among the big families in the country. Therefore, Tang Wei's status in the circle of young masters in the imperial capital had also risen. In the past half a month alone, there were dozens of young masters in the imperial capital who had secretly expressed their goodwill to him. And these people were only able to get close to Tang Wei. Those who couldn't get close to him were still stretching their necks in anticipation. Qin Xiaoyang was rich, but his family was even richer. His father had been engaged in real estate development for more than 20 years. Relying on his strong business acumen and ways to curry favor, he had made a lot of money. Coupled with the fact that his family had a lot of shares in several large domestic logistics businesses, some people had calculated that even if the total assets of Qin Xiaoyang's family didn't exceed 50 billion, it wasn't far from it. Unfortunately, the Qin family had few descendants. Qin Xiaoyang had an uncle who turned out to be a prodigal son. He was a good-for-nothing who indulged in all kinds of debauches and gamblers. The most important thing was that he hadn't married yet and didn't even have a girlfriend. As for Qin Xiaoyang and his brother, the elder brother had entered the public security system. Due to his father's secret guidance, he was now doing very well. But no one knew how far he could go in the future. Qin Xiaoyang was very smart. He had received higher education in the imperial capital since he was a child and got acquainted with a group of young masters in the imperial capital. There were few debauches in his school circle, and he also had his father's style when he entered society. He had simply reached the point of perfection in networking and currying favor with others. He looked for Tang Wei this time, hoping to establish a friendship with Tang Wei and build a relationship with the Tang family. Therefore, he proposed to set up a joint venture entertainment company, a large-scale entertainment media company that integrated online literature section, game development and promotion, film and television production and promotion, as well as a live broadcast platform. The total investment was 4 billion. According to the distribution of his shares, Tang Wei would invest 200 million and hold 30% of the company's shares. He would invest 3.7 billion and hold 70% of the company's shares. It could be said that this was no different from giving money for free. Xiaoyang, you're really willing to spend your hard-earned capital. Tang Wei secretly heaved a sigh of relief. The solemn expression on his face disappeared and was replaced by a faint smile of ridicule. Qin Xiaoyang shrugged and said, I can't help it. Who asked me to hug your thigh? You're quite direct, aren't you? Tan Xiu couldn't help laughing. If I were to play hypocrisy with you, would you look at me? Qin Xiaoyang said with a smile. Tang Wei let out a faint smile and took the red wine handed by the bikini beauty beside him. After drinking it, he sighed, logically speaking, I shouldn't refuse such a good proposal from you. But my younger brother has mentioned to me that he wants me to enter politics. Although I haven't made a decision yet, it's not far from the mark. I'll mention it to my grandfather after I've thought it through. He should be very supportive of it. Enter politics? Qin Shaoyang stared blankly and immediately furrowed his brows. He knew the rule that political officials couldn't do business in private. If Tang Wei really entered politics, he was afraid that he would lose the opportunity to hug his thigh. The Tang family did have other members, but only Tang Wei was suitable. Tang Wei's expression suddenly moved and a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth as he said, "Shaoyang, the Knight 15 in your garage seems to have arrived, right? I heard that my younger brother likes cars very much. Auntie Tang Min recently got him a limited edition luxury sports car." Younger brother? Qin Shaoyang's expression shifted as his eyes lit up right away. As though he had realized something, he said without hesitation, "If your brother likes it, then I'll transfer the Knight 15 that was just parked in my garage yesterday to him. Of course, he won't want it if I give it to him for free. Then I'll thank you on behalf of my younger brother first." Tang Wei grinned. "He just called me and happens to be in the imperial capital now. How about we go look for him?" Qin Shaoyang immediately got up and seriously said, "Then I'll ask brother Tang Wei to introduce me to him. Tan Xiu, he's simply my idol. It seems that my younger brother is quite famous." Tang Wei laughed. Qin Shaoyang exclaimed in admiration, "He's more than famous. His name has spread far and wide like a thunderclap. Just based on what he did today, I'm afraid none of the silk pants young masters in the country will dare to challenge him anymore." Tang Wei stared blankly. He slept until noon today and got up when he received Qin Shaoyang's call. Then, he drove here and didn't hear anything about what happened today. After hesitating for a moment, he asked with a confused expression, "What did Tan Xiu do today?" Qin Shaoyang said with a strange expression, "Don't you know that Tan Xiu beat up Zhao Yundi today? He looked like a pig's head." When Zhao Yundi's father arrived later, not only did he not blame Tan Xiu, but he was deeply grateful and kept thanking him. Zhao Qingfeng simply regarded Tan Xiu as his son's savior. Gulping down a mouthful of saliva, Tang Wei forced a smile and said, "In the entire country, I'm afraid that only my younger brother dares to beat up that madman Zhao Yundi in broad daylight. He's now ranked 84th on the monthly votes list. Will his ranking continue to move forward? How many chapters can he release today?" Chapter 589. Imperial Capital, at the front gate. With both hands in his pockets, Tan Xiu was strolling in the crowd. His appearance had been slightly adjusted. Unless it was someone very familiar with him, it was simply impossible to recognize him. Rows upon rows of shops, a dazzling array of goods, and an endless stream of customers made Tan Xiu secretly sigh at the improvement of the people's living standards. After he came here, he saw a lot of strange things. Sometimes, he would also take the opportunity to buy a few, all for entertainment purposes. Since his mobile phone was not turned off, he received several calls while strolling. One of them was from Long Zhengyu, asking him when he would return to Star City. The other one was from Mu Weining, asking him about what happened in the Virus Research Institute today. In addition, his aunt, Tang Min, called and asked Tan Xiu to go to her house for dinner in the evening. Ring, 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 his mobile phone rang. Tan Xiu took out his mobile and found that it was Chu Yi. He immediately picked up the call and said with a smile, "I was just wondering what you've been busy with recently. I didn't expect that you would actually call me. What's wrong? It's only 3 p.m. and you want to invite me to your house for dinner?" "No, it's not that. I heard about what happened in the Virus Research Institute this morning, so I know that you've come to the imperial capital. Where are you now? I'll go look for you." "At the front gate," Tan Xiu said with a smile. "What are you doing at the front gate?" asked Chu Yi with a confused expression. "I was bored. I don't have many friends in the imperial capital. Anyway, I'm idle, so I came out to stroll around alone," Tan Xiu said. "Wait, I'll go there now," said Chu Yi quickly. More than half an hour later, Chu Yi appeared in front of Tan Xiu. At this time, he had just hung up the call with Tang Wei. An admiring smile hung on Chu Yi's face. After seeing Tan Xiu, he gave him a thumbs up and praised sincerely, "Cousin, you're really awesome." The imperial capital's devil incarnate, Zhao Yundi, was actually beaten into a pig's head by you. This news is now flying everywhere. You've been removed from the list. You've become famous in the circle of young masters and ladies in the capital. You've gained countless fans. Tan Xiu forced a smile and said, "Which blabbermouth actually publicized such a thing?" Chu Yi grinned and said, "It doesn't matter who it is. In short, you're famous now. As for Zhao Yundi, he's in a miserable state right now." Tan Xiu was stunned and asked in confusion, "What's wrong with him?" Chu Yi looked around and found that no one was paying attention to them, so he said in a low voice, "You still don't know." After Zhao Yundi's father, Zhao Qingfeng, took him home, he gave him a good beating with his belt. If his mother hadn't stopped him, he would have been beaten half to death. Even so, he was still sent to the Zhao family's ancestral home and locked in a small dark room to reflect. The Zhao family's little dark room is a hellish place in the hearts of everyone in the imperial capital. It's even worse than the confinement rooms in the fucking army. Tan Xiu couldn't help laughing and said, "That brat really needs to be taught a good lesson. Else, he'll bring disaster to the Zhao family sooner or later if he continues to cause trouble. I hope this matter can make him restrain himself a bit and be an honest and well-behaved man." Chu Yi nodded and said, "Yeah. That guy will probably be miserable in the future if he doesn't keep a low profile. You have no idea how many people he has offended in the imperial capital all these years. If it weren't for the Zhao family's protection, I'm afraid there would have been countless people who would have dealt with him in the dark." Tan Xiu smiled and said, "Let's not talk about Zhao Yundi anymore. Tang Wei just called me and said that he brought a friend to see me. There seems to be something." "That's right. What kind of car is this Knight 15? He also said on the phone that he'll give me a car." I'm puzzled. Could it be that he's like your mother and my aunt, addicted to giving me cars? Chu Yi rolled his eyes and snappily said, "Hey, Tan Xiu, can you not take advantage of me and still act like a good child? I'm so jealous. My mother asked me about cars. I thought she wanted to give me a few cars, so I eagerly told her about a lot of luxury cars. In the end, she bought all of them and gave them to you." Ha ha ha. Looking at Chu Yi's sour expression, Tan Xiu put his arm around his shoulder and said, "We're brothers. Isn't my car your car? Whenever you need a car to drive, you can go directly to Demonic City and drive all the luxury cars in my villa. If you don't have enough money and tolls, I'll give it to you when the time comes." "Fuck off." Chu Yi cursed with a smile and then asked, "Did Tang Wei say anything about bringing a friend?" "He didn't say anything." Tan Xiu shook his head. Chu Yi nodded and asked, "Then what should we do next? Continue strolling around? Or find a place to drink something and wait for them to come?" "Let's find a place to sit." Tan Xiu pondered for a moment and said. After that, the two of them found a coffee shop nearby and sat down in the innermost corner, drinking coffee while chatting. After a while, Tang Wei and Qin Xiaoyang hurried over. Chu Yi's expression changed when he saw Qin Xiaoyang, and he gave Tan Xiu a meaningful look. "Yo, Chu Yi, you're here too." After Tang Wei noticed Chu Yi sitting opposite to Tan Xiu, he immediately chuckled and said. Chu Yi said, "If you can come, why can't I?" For the rest of the day, Tan Xiu's time has been occupied by me. Saying. He nodded to Qin Xiaoyang and said with a smile, "Xiaoyang, how come you're with Tang Wei? Don't tell me this guy brought you to the Conti Club again." Qin Xiaoyang took off his clothes. His body was streamlined and muscular, but he looked a little thin with his clothes on. At this moment, he said with a smile, "No, I dragged him there." Chu Yi grinned and pointed to Tan Xiu, saying, "I don't need to introduce him, do I? He's more famous than Zhao Yundi right now. Tan Xiu, this is Qin Xiaoyang. He can be said to be a good man with the widest connections in the entire circle of young masters in the imperial capital. You have to be careful with him. This guy is too smart. Don't get betrayed by him without knowing it. Qin Shaoyang forced a smile and said, I say, Chu Yi, how can you make friends like this? Other people are always protecting their friends, but you're the one who sold me out. Idol Tan Xiu, it's an honor to meet you. Tan Xiu got up and shook hands with Qin Shaoyang. Then, he motioned him to sit next to Chu Yi. He then patted the sofa next to him and said to Tang Wei with a smile, Brother Wei, aren't you talking with your friends outside? How come you have time to come here? Tang Wei pointed to Qin Shaoyang and said, I'm talking with him. But the matter we're talking about is a bit big, and I might not be able to participate, so I want to introduce him to you. Immediately, Tang Wei told him about Qin Shaoyang's proposal and finally said, I'm 80% sure that I'll listen to your suggestion and enter politics. Therefore, I don't want to participate in the business cooperation anymore. In my eyes, you're the business genius. You might as well play with me if you're interested. Tan Xiu glanced at Qin Shaoyang and then turned his head and asked, Can our Tang family play a role? Aunt Yanzi has real power, said Tang Wei. Tan Xiu suddenly understood. He quietly pondered for a few minutes and then said, You're Qin Shaoyang, right? I'm indeed interested in the business cooperation you proposed. But I think we need to consider the management and shares in the long term if we want to cooperate. Qin Shaoyang's eyes lit up and immediately said, Please say it, young Master Tang. Tan Xiu waved his hand and said, Just call me Tan Xiu later. I'm used to people calling me by my name. The total investment is 4 billion yuan, and I'll invest 2 billion yuan for 40% of the shares. You'll run the company and I won't intervene in the management. I'll hold 51% of the shares. As for the remaining 9% of the shares, I'll keep it for the company's senior management after the company is established. What do you think? Qin Shaoyang didn't expect that Tan Xiu would be willing to invest 2 billion yuan for only 40% of the shares. At this moment, he had a good impression of Tan Xiu. At the very least, he thought that Tan Xiu didn't want to take advantage of him by relying on his status as a member of the Tang family. Moreover, Tan Xiu was so bold and courageous. It might be very pleasant to cooperate with such a person in the future. I have no objection. Qin Shaoyang happily said. Chu Yi rolled his eyes and snorted, but I have an objection. Tan Xiu and Qin Shaoyang stared blankly for a moment and then looked confused. Chu Yi said, I say, you too. Why don't you pull me in for such a good investment project? Didn't people say that? Since it's a profitable business, let's earn it together. All right. All right. Tan Xiu and Qin Shaoyang didn't have any objection. Although Tan Xiu and Chu Yi were cousins, and his aunt, Tang Min, was also centered around the Tang family, Chu Yi was, after all, a member of the Chu family in the imperial capital. Although the Chu family was inferior to the Tang family in the imperial capital, it was also an outstanding mid-level family. Even if it couldn't be ranked in the top 10, it was still within the top 15. Furthermore, Chu Yi had lived in the imperial capital since he was a child, and his social circle was also here. If he also joined, it would be a great help for the future entertainment company. Finally, after the three of them negotiated, they finally determined the investment amount and the distribution of shares. Tan Xiu would invest 1 billion yuan and hold 30% of the shares. Chu Yi would invest 500 million yuan and hold 15% of the shares. 10% of the shares would be reserved for the company's senior management in the future, and the remaining 45% of the shares would belong to Qin Shaoyang, with an investment of 1.5 billion yuan. At the end of the discussion, Tan Xiu intended to invite everyone to have a few drinks to celebrate, but Tan Xiu refused because he would go to Chu Yi's house for dinner in the evening. Tomorrow. Let's get together tomorrow night and discuss some details of the cooperation, and then sign the contract. No problem. let's go to the Kanda Club tomorrow. Qin Xiaoyang said with a smile. Have you ever been to the Kanda Club, Tan Xiu? I've never heard of it. Tan Xiu shook his head. The Kanda Club is a good place for the children of the top families and super-rich families in the country to spend their time. Tang Wei smiled and said, let me give you an example. If you don't have a leader with real power and assets of more than 10 billion yuan in your family, you won't be able to step into the threshold. I'm very grateful to Wandering Fish Lover for the reward. Congratulations to Wandering Fish Lover for being promoted as the new leader of this novel. Today's 5th update will be given to you. The rest of the updates will be returned tomorrow. Quiet Night will attend a very important meeting tomorrow and must spare some time to prepare the speech. Similarly, a portion of the 20 billion yuan needed to be used to nurture talents, including the street children that were constantly being adopted from all over the country. Of course, there were also some smaller investments, such as the project with Jin Xinkue, and the purchase of medicinal herbs and precious ores. After calculating them all, he only had 24 billion yuan left. Of the 24 billion, about another 5 billion would be needed for the reconstruction project in Nine Dragons Island. If he wanted to buy a few more helicopters, private airliners, yachts, and cruises, the number would probably increase. Tan Xiu could be considered as someone who knew how to live his life. He would save as much money as he could. But for the reconstruction of Nine Dragons Island, the utilization of Clam Island and Resting Cemetery Island, he didn't even bat an eyelid. After all, the purpose of making money was for resources, and the purpose of obtaining resources was for cultivation. He thought that all the expenses that were beneficial to cultivation were worth it. The environment is good. After parking the car in the underground parking lot, Tan Xiu looked at Chu Yi and said, this is, after all, the most upscale residential area within the second ring road, so the environment is naturally very good. However, it's still a bit worse than the South Gate town where you live in Star City. Quickly. The duo took the elevator to the 7th floor. For such a small 12-story high-rise building, the 7th floor was in the middle. Due to the distance between the buildings, the lighting was very good. Tang Min came back from the unit early and even went to the supermarket to buy a lot of ingredients. At this time, she was busy in the kitchen. Chu Zhong'an also received a call from his wife. He learned that Tan Xiu would come to dinner tonight, so he came back early and was helping out in the kitchen. Upon hearing the sound of the door, the husband and wife immediately came out from the inside. Xiu, this should be your first time meeting your uncle, right? Tang Min pointed at Chu Zhong'an and smilingly said. Tan Xiu nodded with a smile and honestly called him uncle. Although it was Chu Zhong'an's first time meeting Tan Xiu wasn't a stranger to him. Even when Tan Xiu hadn't returned to the Tang family to acknowledge his ancestral roots, he had already known about Tan Xiu. After all, it was hard for him not to pay attention to his son's big investment in Star City. Tan Xiu, uncle has heard of your name for a long time. I didn't expect that I would only see you today. You look very spirited, just like your father's style in those days. Chu Zhong'an praised. Uncle, you're overpraising me, replied Tan Xiu modestly. After the modest reply, Tan Xiu casually put it into his pocket and quietly took out 2 small jade bottles from his interspatial ring. He handed them over to Chu Zhong'an and said, this is the first time I come to visit you, so this is a small gift for you and Auntie. I hope you can become younger and more beautiful. Chu Zhong'an stared blankly for a moment, whereas Tang Min smilingly said, you silly boy. Why did you bring gifts to your auntie's house? I'll get angry later if you treat auntie and uncle as strangers again. Tan Xiu smiled and stuffed the 2 jade bottles into Tang Min's hands. Tang Min looked at the 2 jade bottles and curiously asked, what's inside, Xiu? It's some body tempering liquid I refined, said Tan Xiu. There are 10 drops in each jade bottle. Tang Min was surprised and asked, body tempering liquid? What's that? The body tempering liquid is a spirit medicine used by low-level cultivators to enhance their physique, explained Tan Xiu. Ordinary people can't withstand the efficacy of the body tempering liquid. If it's used according to the method used by cultivators, it will be fatal. Therefore, I only put 10 drops in each jade bottle. When you take a bath, just put 1 drop into the bathtub at a time, and the interval between each use must be at least 3 days. This kind of body tempering liquid can even restore the physique of a 70 or 80-year-old man to the state of a 50 or 60-year-old man. Additionally, this body tempering liquid is also very good for the skin. Auntie, you should be able to find that your skin is much better than it is now after using it a few times. Tang Min's eyes lit up with a pleasantly surprised expression. She already knew that her nephew was a cultivator with a very strong strength. Even the famous Amur tiger was not his opponent. The spirit medicine refined by him would definitely have a very strong effect. At the side, Chu Zhongen's eyes also lit up, and he was even a bit excited inwardly. His father, the head of the Chu family, was now in his early 80s, and his physical fitness was getting worse year by year. Although he usually took good care of his father and the nursing work was in place, he couldn't withstand the erosion of time and was now old and clumsy. If this body tempering liquid really had such a good effect, Chu Zhongen rubbed his hands and looked at Tan Xiu with fiery eyes. He was ready to give it a try. If the effect was really as good as Tan Xiu said, he would find a way to get more from Tan Xiu. The Chu family was very low-key nowadays. Why? It was because his father was weak and sick, and had reached the end of his life. If he could make his father's body suddenly become strong and healthy, even if his physical fitness could be compared to 10 years ago, then his Chu family could continue to develop rapidly for the next 10 years. Tan Xiu, is the body tempering liquid very difficult to concoct? Chu Zhongen suddenly asked. Tang Xiu hesitated for a moment and then said, "It's hard to say that it's difficult, but it's not difficult either. It's just that I need some special medicinal herbs to concoct the body refining liquid. I was lucky enough to get some." Chu Zhongen looked a bit regretful as he sighed, "That's really a pity. If it's easy to concoct, this thing will definitely be an excellent treasure. It can make money, gain power, and expand one's social network. It's a super cheat." Tan Xiu had already realized Chu Zhongen's thoughts, so he kept it a bit to himself. However, he also thought that Chu Zhongen was right. If this thing was used well, it would definitely be a super cheat that could bring him great benefits. If I give some to Grandpa, the idea sprouted in Tan Xiu's mind and he immediately made up his mind. Tang Min didn't think as much as Chu Zhongen did. The good thing given to her by her nephew made her happy and decided to use it tonight. Immediately after, she went back to the kitchen to continue cooking, while Chu Zhongen stayed in the living room and chatted with Tan Xiu. Due to the body tempering liquid, Chu Zhongen also became more amiable to Tan Xiu. His good attitude during the meal made Chu jealous. After a happy and harmonious dinner, Tan Xiu stayed and chatted for nearly an hour before he got up and left. Tang Min originally wanted to let Tan Xiu stay here. After all, the house had an area of more than 200 square meters, and there were several empty rooms. But Tan Xiu refused. At 9 p.m., Tan Xiu returned to the Tang family's ancestral residence and directly pulled Tang Guosheng to his study. After sitting on the sofa in the study, Tan Xiu directly took out the body tempering liquid and handed it to Tang Guosheng, saying, "Grandpa, this is the body tempering liquid, 100 drops in total. I originally wanted to sell it, but after thinking about it, I think it's better to give it to you." "What's the effect of this body tempering liquid?" asked Tang Guosheng with a strange expression. Tan Xiu explained the effect of the body tempering liquid and finally said, "As far as I know, those who can become the top officials in our country are all very old. If this body tempering liquid is used on them, how many benefits do you think our Tang family can get?" Tang Guosheng's entire being was as though petrified. He was tongue-tied for a long while before he suddenly stood up from the sofa. His robust body shivered as he spoke with a trembling voice. Xiao, are you sure that the effect of this body refining potion is as good as you said? Tan Xiao also got up and said, Grandpa, it's better for you to try it yourself. Thanks to 52 Kai Kai and Wild Net for their generous rewards and support. Congratulations to the two of you for becoming the newest Union Master who has returned from the immortal world. I'm looking for monthly votes on the last day of this month. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.